It's preparing the stream. So, yeah, brutal with Burrow, huh?
Yes. JB?
I mean, just absolutely tough. Tough it goes there. I'm going to have you watching the chat, by the way, so keep an eye on the chat. Welcome on to the Hawks Nest here. Just a sudden show, surprise show with Dmack. We thought we'd hop in now and do a little talk here before the weekend, before we get our Seahawks playing, and just figured do a little NFL chat in general, NFL talk a little bit of Seahawks, talk about what we think on our chances going forward. I'm sure we'll get some people in the chat to a degree here, but I figured we just kind of bounce around. And, bro, I had to ask you quick out the gate, D-Mac, because when it happened, I just cringed a little bit for you. I know you're not a Bengals fan anymore, and you've made that clear. You're just from the area. But, boy, you got to feel for your local brethren out there and what they've gone through now with Burrow having really one of the better rookie seasons we've seen from a rookie quarterback recently, especially considering he didn't have much of an offensive line. But then bam, boom, beam, the offensive line.
The Bengals luck, baby.
Bengals luck, man. I mean, it's just kind of brutal, and it looks like it's going to be the full meal deal on that. It also goes to show you there's those certain rules in football that are a rule for a reason. And one of the rules out there in football, or general rule of thumbs, is supposed to be that you are supposed to go and actually get you should go get your franchise quarterback, your offensive line before the franchise quarterback. At the very least, get your left tackle, and then second best, get a center in there. And if you don't have those positions in play, you're going to go down the road to getting them beat up. And that's just what happens to them here now over the course of a season. It finally one of those hits takes its toll on it. And again, it comes back and sort of proves the rule of thumb, essentially, which now does remain. You just got to not you got to get the offensive line first, then get the quarterback. Or if you're bringing the quarterback in, get the guy in, and you'd think that this would be a straightforward approach, but there's a lot of teams around the league that aren't even doing this recently. You saw this with the New York Jets. They finally got Becton in there, I think, a left tackle this draft. How many years has Darnold been over there? Look at the Houston Texans, the overpay they had to do for Laramie Tunsil because they didn't get a left tackle. And that was after he'd already had an ACL injury. You could make the argument for because he had some similar stuff going on, running for his life, getting beat up, those type of things. So I think it just does prove that rule, but boy, you just feel brutal for him. And if it's going to take him a year and a half to come back, I almost think they need to just give him a season off next year. If it's going to be, he's not coming back till halfway in the year, and just work on developing that line, work on developing the rest of the team, because the team's not ready. Team's not ready on any way, shape, or form. You got some playmakers, Mixon, Boyd, the kid that got Higgins out of Clemson looks all right, but
yeah, I think the Bengals they need to sell off. This is definitely a time to just sell off. They've already got rid of Dunlap. They're already going in that direction. They just need to do a fire sale and just start back over and refresh the roster, build up a lot of draft capital, and just go at it in another year and a half too.
If you don't have the money to spend like they don't, if you can't be a person on the free agent market, if you're, you've got to do other things to get your edge. And sometimes that's planning 2 years out for the time when you're really looking to hit, especially if as tough as that division is. Even Cleveland, that's not a great team right now. It's really tough to play. You're not going to get over Pittsburgh. You're not going to get over Baltimore. Let those teams get a little older and then come into play. Let Roethlisberger retire. Let Lamar Jackson get beat up a little bit more. What's up, Cameron Hughes? Zach Zaracha. Will we win versus the Eagles? Ask Zach. D-Mac, what's your early predictions on that one?
What's the predictions on what?
On the Eagles game coming up on Monday night.
Oh, the Eagles game. Oh, we're going to win that by 2 touchdowns. Easy.
Yeah, I watched a good amount of this last Eagle game that they just played this over the weekend, and the offense just looks lost. It completely lost. It doesn't have an identity. Wentz is definitely under a lot of pressure, so he's suffering from seeing ghosts / there are real players up in his face sometimes, and that's really causing him to change how he plays the quarterback position versus how he played a couple of years ago when he was on an MVP-like ascent. Folks really want to point to him and say, oh, look how far he's regressed. Well, he's regressed because he had a phenomenal offensive line at that time. Legitimately, I think he had 2 or 3 Pro Bowlers on that offensive line, if not almost more. That's going to make a quarterback look really, really good at times. And it did. And now it's in the opposite direction, which we saw in Russell back in, let's say, 2017. You see what that offensive line does and how it holds the whole show up and how hard it makes it for you to even play offense, much less be effective at the offensive side of the ball. And that's just coming home to roost. It's not all their fault. They did invest. A guy like Dillard out of Washington State, they drafted high, I think, in the first round to replace Peters. He goes down. They've invested in Brandon Brooks, their right guard, I believe, who's a Pro Bowler. He went down for the year. Lane Johnson, one of the best right tackles in the sport right now, is fighting through, I think, some ankle problems this season. They moved Peters to left guard, thinking that'd be upgrade left guard. Now they've had to move him back to left tackle. And he's 38, 39 years old. He's struggling. His feet are slow. He can't move like he used to. So it's there. We should be able to get some pressure. I agree with you, Dmack. I say it's a win because I think offensively they don't of all the offenses we played this year that would have the components and ability to attack our defense where we're weak and struggling, this is the weakest offense at doing that. Even over a guy like, Cam Newton with the Patriots, who don't have as many maybe playmakers as the Eagles do on the other side. Jalen Reagor, my guy, he's having a pretty good year. That's showing out to be pretty good. That was one of my favorite receivers last draft. He's doing well, and this Fulgham kid has shown out too. So they are dangerous. But defensively, I guess that's where our biggest week is going to come up is can we stop their pass rush, which is where they really hinge most of their defensive performance on, in my opinion. Although Slay's legit out there. He's playing great for them. The kid they picked up out of Detroit, he's been really, really balling out for them well. So they're going to probably give our defense struggles. But I got this is actually a low-scoring game in this one. I'm going to put us at 25-14 in this game or 25-17, something like that. I think that's where I kind of see it.
That's low scoring?
Well, for us, for us and for our defense, that is, you know what I mean? So, but I say we pull this one out. We've got this one going, I think, Zach. I like to watch NFL. Seahawks will win 37-16, but I'm a little scared for the weather. Weather's always an issue. We saw last year in the first Eagle game, it affected offensively on that one because you saw the winds were whipping in that one, and it was taking those quarterback throws and taking the ball and moving it 10 yards off the throw spot sometimes. They had a great overhead shot with DK, and it was this big thing that a lot of people gave him a hard time on being a drop. But when you see Russell throw it, it looks like right where DK is going, and instead it just starts trailing away from him at the last second. So the win there is a big deal. Other elements are going to maybe be due to come into play here. And that's going to be, to me, that's to our detriment. We need our passing game to be explosive. Obviously, getting the running game back, that's maybe the boon here. We get Carlos Hyde back this week. We get Posick back. The offensive line settles in. Now we might be without Shell, but we should be able to run up the middle and attack them up the middle at times because I was watching them against Cleveland. Cleveland was getting some gaping holes with both Hunt and Chubb able to find some running room on this defensive line. So that's to me will be really the key for us. As much as throwing, it's going to be how we run the ball this game because that's a weakness for them. They don't have a great strength of stopping the pass, but you don't want to sit there and attack Darius Slay 8 to 10 times a game as he's covering DK over there probably. I mean, Darius is playing near best level of any quarterback in this sport right now. So you need to bend away from him and probably go to other places to a degree. But
I say we should throw at him. I'm not scared.
Oh, you're going strong at him, huh?
Yeah,
you're challenging Darius.
But that's my philosophy for every game. I mean, when I saw what DK did to the Patriots, it gave me so much confidence in his connection with Russell Wilson that I'm not afraid to throw it at least 5-6 times. It doesn't matter who's guarding DK.
I don't want to do the thing they did in a couple of the games, the Cardinal game with Peterson in the first one where they completely ignored him. And then as we saw in, of course, the Ram game with Ramsey where they completely ignored him. He's got to get some targets, but there's just that. If we go up against a defense that's got a weakness, I want to kind of try to attack that weakness. And I don't know if the Eagles necessarily defensive line's a weakness or attacking the run game's a weakness, but it seemed like it in the times I've watched him. They're not consistently stopping the run, and especially getting Hyde back or Carson back with his fresh legs. Got like a gang of bikers rolling by. Especially Carson getting back his fresh legs. Posick back, fresh legs. Let's get him going up the middle. Let's just make this, if we can eat this up with the running game, I'm all on board with doing it. But yes, we got to still don't ignore DK. Don't do what you did in those other two games where you completely just were like, huh? We have DK Metcalf on our team? What? Huh?
I want to take a time out for a new subscriber. We got Washi in the chat.
He says, what's up, going on? How you doing, Washi?
We appreciate you. Please like and subscribe. This is a channel where we talk about all things football. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with saying anything, any opinion that you have. Just speak your truth, and let's go forward. We have a lot of fun on this channel.
All opinions welcome. That is for sure. And what's up, Jose, my moderator? Happy Turkey Day to you too. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there.
Yep,
you guys are all having a nice big fat meal, and you guys be in a food coma by tomorrow about this time, or right around this time tomorrow. Cameron Hughes says, I made a Trey Flowers video. I exaggerated in the title a little bit. Trey Flowers locked down D-Hop, but I'm still happy for the guy. He looks way more confident. What do you think about Trey's play as of recent, Dmack?
I think they did a really good job on D-Hop. And Trey Flowers, to me, has been solid. Like I said, the guy has just been a steady, DB in our secondary. So I like Trey Flowers actually. So I'm actually going to check that video out, Cameron.
Yeah, and I've been one of those guys. I went from the offseason having high hopes on Trey, and then through first few couple of games when he came in, it was just like, bro, this guy's got night and day as a player. His development's not only not taking a step forward, he's backtracked a couple steps at times. But we've got to give him credit over the last 4 or 5 games. He's stacked together a reasonable collection of games here where he's been at least solid for us. I don't think anybody's expecting Pro Bowl level of play from him, but if you could just get him into that league average position, what kind of value you'd have there if you could. There's a lot that still needs to be done. He's got it, but man, that was a legitimate game. That's the best I think anybody's done on D-Hop all year. He's been tearing everybody up, and they just took away anything else. But all he had was that stop route where he'd go like 7 yards up the field, just come to a stop and sit down, and then they throwed him at the sideline. That was the only thing that seemed to be really open for him at all, and they weren't patient with it or trying to attack it very much, even though it was there constantly, which that's part of Carroll's thing that he says is, okay, we'll drop in this deep zone. And you go, wait. The short passes there on the underneath route, the little curl routes from 7 yards is going to be available on the sideline all day for the receiver then, because you got your corner 10 yards off, not playing press, and then he drops into bail. And then Carroll goes, yeah, I know. You go, but they're just going to do that play after play after play, right? No, huh? Why? They'll get impatient. They'll get impatient
with first downs.
They're gonna want to go over the top some point or another. But Pete, this is free money. There's literally a stack of dollar bills sitting on right next to the first down marker on the sideline for D-Hop every time. But hey, to a testament to him, they did have times that they went away to it. They didn't attack it as much. He only had a couple of catches. I mean, but to me, if they had just gone in the game, the Cardinals, and said, okay, we'll take D-Hop on the sideline every time they give it to us, he could have had probably 13 or 14 catches if they just committed to it. They just didn't. But Flowers did play solid. So solid point there, Cameron.
B. Russ is saying, do you expect Pete to let Russ cook, or do we go back to the run game with this one, with Carson likely coming back?
Well, we saw last week that it was back to the old style of Seahawks play, the 50-50 / we're going to even run the ball a little bit more than we're going to pass, which will annoy me at times with offensively when we get to that margin of running. I don't want to get to that point, in my opinion. I want a little more passing than running. But yeah, I do see more of what we saw this last week because Coach Carroll will think that's what turned us around. That's what made last week work. That's why we won. So we'll go back to it and we'll just keep staying with what's working. And I think that you'll see a little bit of Russ throwing, a little bit of up tempo as they've done, maybe a little more throwing on first down. But I think our days of seeing Russ throw 40, 45 times this year are probably over with, unless he's really pressed into action to doing it because the defense just can't stop anybody, which may be a possibility. So we're going to see more running, a lot more running as we go forward. This is going to turn into a lot more of a balanced team, I bet, as we get in through the end of this year.
Well, I agree with that. Statistically, I mean, with weather getting bad and things like that, you kind of bring it in a little bit more as an offense, and try to run the ball, establish the run. So I definitely think they'll run the ball a little bit more.
Yeah. I think it's just going to be a natural evolution on this season and the way things have gone. But it doesn't mean the Russ can't still throw for 45, 50 touchdowns. It just means there won't be a lot of probably yards. Cameron Hughes also wanted Rieger too. I want a Percy Harpin type receiver. I like Percy. Yeah, there's a little bit of Percy's game to Rieger. I thought him as like a little bit bigger version of a Steve Smith. I thought he had a little bit of that potential to his game. Maybe not Steve Smith per se, but just sort of those kind of elements. He's a little bit of an undersized, not he's undersized, but he's not one of these big 6'1", 6'2" guys. I just loved that explosiveness, Dmack, and those receivers. The guys that not only it's jumping high, it's how quickly they can get there to the height of their jump, where they're outspringing a cornerback who might be right there in coverage and able to take the ball away and play like a receiver much bigger than they naturally are because of that explosiveness. I saw that on his tape in TCU a lot. It's part of why I liked him so much. And he doesn't have a lot of holes to his game. Good route runner, good hands, all that stuff.
Dark is saying, did you see the Rams versus Bucks game?
I did. It was an interesting game to watch. Obviously, there's times where, again, I settle back into maybe it's just my bias working into Frey, but I go, okay, there's times where Brady's just looking more and more like the fork is protruding out of his back a little bit, and in this game, there was times where it just seemed like and maybe it was the pressure. Rams can get pressure. As we well know, Rams can get pressure with the front four and they can drop everybody else back in coverage. And that's going to be the thing that gives Brady a tough time. He sees blitzes stacked up on the line and he's going to call every blitz out and he'll have every man blocked up prior to the snap and he'll have attacked it with a route thusly. But you put those guys back, you put 7 deep back in coverage or whatever it is, and drop that many guys back in zone and run some games back there. you can still get him to a point where he doesn't trust his arm strength as much to get into those tight zones. You're really testing him at that point. I think the Rams did a good job of that in this game. And then offensively, they just did kind of just enough. It seemed like they moved the ball pretty well when they had to. They ran a lot of their misdirection and testing you to sort of stay disciplined and not buy in, not oversell yourself on a given play. They love to do that. Dmack, they'll stack up the 3 wide receivers in a trips, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they bring back Cooper Kupp across the zone, and then they're running play action. They're running play action to the trip side, but then it's such a struggle for the defender because the edge defender at that point, or even it just be, let's say, called the outside linebackers to be at the Sam, right? Dmack.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to come over then and make the call of either A, do I have to cover Cooper Kupp? Is Cooper Kupp going to be blocking me? Or do I drive down on Jared Goff and leave my zone empty behind me? It really puts them in this pickle.
It puts defenses in bad spots. And this is what I was saying about, assignment football and why I feel like they give us such fits on defense. Like their offense is sophisticated. And like I said, they hired McVay just to take care of us and things like that. So let's just put it out there. Their offense is very, very confusing. All of their sets kind of look the same. Like they line up in the formation and they all look the same. They're based off the same formations and they can run 20 plays out of that formation. You don't know what's coming at you. They're almost in a NASCAR type of offense, hurry up. And it's just, it's intense, man. Like, and then you've got these guys that are just, they catch everything, coronavirus, they catch it all. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're catching everything. Cooper Kupp and Woods, flu, man. I don't think I've ever seen these guys drop a ball, man. And so it's just like you got all these different elements of that offense that just works very well. What McVay wants to do on offense, and it's just a beauty. Like it really is. I hats off to him. The offense is definitely dynamic. But I do know what you mean. So they're running basically like a bootleg back to the strength of the trip side, but it puts the linebacker at a disadvantage because Cooper Kupp can do anything. He's got all types of route trees that he can run. He can run across. He can go up the seam.
It's all option based. It could be option based, where it's just you read the linebacker and go. And
they can hand the ball off in that formation. I mean, pick your poison. So it's just like it puts defense. Like I said, offense is put out there to deceive the defense, and it's the defense job to read and react to what they see. And so if you're seeing a whole bunch of different things thrown at you out of the same formation, it makes you think, and you don't want to be like on defense, you don't want to be thinking all the time. You want to be able to fly around, pin your ears back, and make a play and be sure about what you see. And a lot of times you don't know what you're seeing and what you're getting out of that Rams offense.
No, it's like you said, sophisticated. It's you and they run the same look thing, and your words sparked my mind because it's in our defense. What do we want to do? Play fast and loose. That's why there's such simplicity. We don't want our defense to have to think. We're going to tell them to have a basic task, play in and play out, and we're going to have them stick to that task, and then they'll continue to do so thusly. That's why you run so much cover 3 with your corners dropping deep. It's just you want them to be able to just react to what they're seeing on the football field. Well, now the Rams almost throw that out the window because they go, no. We'll run so much stuff out of the same look. We're going to force your guys to have to think rather than being able to play fast. And that's, again, back to your point of they hired this guy specifically to get us. It's like this movie. Do you ever see the movie The Ghost in the Darkness about the tigers and it's these 2 lions that are eating people in Africa? And one guy's down there, he's trying to build this bridge at the time, right? And they can't stop these lions. And the guy he's trying to build. So they call in the hunter. This corporation calls in the hunter at the time, the Britain corporate. And it's this guy, old grizzled actor, I forget his name at the time, but he comes in and he's there just to hunt just this lion, like the best hunter ever. And that's just what they did. They brought in this guy that was specifically, they knew with this offense, consulting with their experts, how he would get it done. And it was really to just attack us at the time. And we're sitting on that mountaintop, who were the big dogs, who everybody wanted to knock off, especially the people within our own division. So it's totally true. Totally true. All right, we got to get through some questions here. And Dark RH, I do see the Rams game being the big one of the season. You know that, by the way. I still see that being the one that's going to be the big game looming for us as we go forward. I like to watch NFL. It's going to be 59 degrees on Monday when we play them, and it's going to be raining. Yeah, well, there's one team that knows how to play in the rain, right, Dmack? Joey Mendez, I do not think the secondary for Philly can hold up. The Giants have exposed them twice. Our receivers are more talented than New York. Well, I'll say after Darius Slay, there's not a lot left in that secondary. They lost their safety for years that they had there. The Malcolm guy, I forget what his name is. But he's Malcolm Jenkins. He was a great safety for them for years, but he's moved on, of course, back, I think, to New Orleans.
Yeah.
And they don't have a lot else out there at corner. I will acknowledge that. Their Sidney Jones pick from a couple years ago in the second round from Washington never panned out. They've lost a couple other guys. So you can definitely attack the other areas. That's kind of what I was saying too. Dmack is like, Slay's that one part in that secondary that's decent. Why not just attack all the other weaknesses? Why not just go after all the other spots where it's
why agitate a lion over there when you can just easily just feast
exactly.
You know what I mean? On the
gazelle.
You
got gazelles just laying there half like limping along, like, just like already half dead, old, like, how about this one?
Joey says, throw at Philly. The secondary is soft. It will open up for the run for Hyde and Carson. We agree.
I agree. We'll have a good balance. I think you're going to see a lot of both. James Glenn says the last play of the Cardinals game is why I wanted Carlos Dunlap since May. Better late than never. And this was my point at the time. To your point, James, this was what I was saying, James, on the live stream show this last week, which is that why you pine for a veteran yet talented yet productive pass rusher is those type of guys tend to be guys that can set up a lineman over the course of the game for the play when they need it, for that sack when they need it. So they'll set a lineman up on an inside move, then come out. And my point on this is if you look at Carlos Dunlap and you watch his tape, when he tends to pass rush, even during the season right now, when you watch him, he's the Calais Campbell type. He locks his arms up on the lineman because he's got long arms, lineman with his little fingers, just tickling the guy's chest. And then he just walks him back, and then it's a disengage, right? But what you watch in that last play, he goes to his 6'7" guy, 6'6" guy, goes to his rare bend and turn, and he tries to turn the corner on the lineman, and it catches the lineman off guard. That's why it's he almost has an open, easy path to the quarterback Murray in that moment, because the lineman is so set up on anchoring down and making sure he's getting set to handle the power that's coming off of him on Dunlap. And that's a veteran pass rusher. That's a veteran pass rusher setting up a move for when he needs it. And those young guys can't do that. A young Darrell Taylor, when he arrives on the scene, is going to be out there just go fast, just go fast. And it's the guys that can go beyond that, just play fast and start thinking a little bit to when you needed that time. No, the Cardinals, if you don't get that pass rush, does he get the completion down the field? Probably on our defense. They find their way up the field as they were up until that point. But you get a veteran pass rusher, and that can be the one thing that you need in the defense at that point to cement the game.
And one thing that was crazy when I looked at that play, it took Kyler Murray by surprise because the first game, he had no threat. He probably looked at the film and was just like, bro, I got so much time to sit in this pocket, bro. So it threw Kyler Murray off because it was like, wait, hold on, like what? Like I'm actually
quick pressure.
Like what? Who is this? Like he looked back like, what? Wait, what? Like if you really look at that play, it surprised the shit out of Kyler Murray because he didn't expect it at all. And like if you look at it, Kyler Murray could have ran for 20 yards on that play. He was just wanted to throw, to be great at the end of the game or whatever. So.
And he had, I think he had 2 plays in his back pocket, or it was the 4th down on that one. So
he had plenty of time. He wasn't rushing.
And even to the point on through the game, let's say through the game where Dunlap's getting some pressure in there. But again, Murray knows in the pocket as he's dropping back, number one, Dunlap's coming from his non-blind side. So he sees Dunlap coming in when he's giving him the pressure early on in this game. Most of the time they're lining him up over on that edge. So he probably thinks in the back of his mind, even if this guy walks this guy back to me like he's been doing throughout the game, I can still skitter out the back door, or I can duck in and just cut it up. He'll do he's done it all day at will. Just get out the back door, just use his wheels to get out the back. The kid's got as good a feet in the NFL, a quick feet as anybody. He's legitimately a football 4.3, at least 5 guy on the field. I mean, he's really fast, but that's where, again, he not only is he surprising the tackle, he's surprising the quarterback. This is, again, maybe I'm giving Dunlap a little more, too much pressure, too much credit here, but that's what it feels like when you're watching that moment. Cause I've seen that in the past. I've seen Michael Bennett's, I've seen Cliff Avrils, I've seen going back to even Cortez Kennedy types where you could see them setting a lineman up, attacking a certain side of the shoulder, for instance, on a play, and then coming back on another play instantly. And it's part of what you need to get. That's why I don't like getting the young pass rushers. I like the more guys
the veteran guys.
I like the veteran guys that give me the certainty, give me the surety. Maybe I don't have the top end 14, 15 sacks a year, but I have a guy, I know what I'm getting. He's going to get me pressure. And when I need it, he can be clutch because he knows how to set a guy up.
Right. Cameron Hughes is saying, I think we will win 28-13.
A lot of confidence in the chat. A lot of
And
confidence.
Thanksgiving
Loving
is
it.
his favorite holiday.
Loving it. B. Ross, who do you think we turn to a tight end? Is it time to release Disley or roll with Hollister? Any chance we see Parkinson in there? It's going to be Disley over Hollister. Hollister will be the number 2. And then, yes, you will see Parkinson probably in there as the number 3 at this point. And look, Seattle's front office said after they drafted him in the press conference, they had a first-round grade on this guy. So if you've got a first-round grade on a guy and he's had the whole season to prep his body and get himself ready to get on the football field, I'm expecting a guy to look okay out there. I'm not expecting I don't want to see some guy out there that looks completely lost and absent if he's put out on the football field at this point. Pull the shooter score prediction. I'm 25-17. What did you have, Dmack, on your score prediction?
Let's see. I said 2 touchdowns, but I didn't have any prediction.
Pull the shooter says Darius Slay is going to be a problem. Dmack, he's thinking he's going to be a problem. It should be a blowout win. I don't even think it should be close.
Slay, to me, he's a great defender, but he on a deep ball, he couldn't jump with DK. He couldn't win a contested jump ball with DK.
Yeah, I think DK has gotten into that talent level that we've got to say he's a guy you do have to just work. You just have to trust his talent, trust him to be able to get it done for you out there. How many balls are intercepted that are thrown there where Russell hasn't thrown it up? He has had like 1 or 2 interceptions to DK where he's fluttered up this feather ball. But when he throws it in with any kind of purpose to DK is getting it or nobody's getting it. I think you got to target him at this point. DK is really elevating his game as we've gone over the course of the season, in my opinion. And it's just his top end continues to rise for me personally. I've said, oh, he'll be the next, oh, he's going to be the next this guy. No, he'll be even better. He'll be the next this guy. No, wait, he might even be even better. He could be even better than this guy. He's on that trajectory to me as far as a player. So we've got to work him, but Slay's good. Slay's having a great season. That's the one move by the Eagles this offseason that's worked. But I'll tell you, the Eagles are definitely hurting the same way the Packers are hurting at times with that stupid, silly second-round pick that they spent on Jalen Hurts. You have Carson Wentz as a quarterback. You need offensive line help. So you're going to go get a backup quarterback in the second round that you hope you eventually will be able to flip. Kind of silly.
And then Poole saying he misses Marquise Blair aggressiveness on our defense. I agree with that.
Too. Yeah.
That was looking really good with him and Prez. They were playing off each other really, really good. I definitely missed that.
That was a huge loss. And the first game of the season to have it pop up, you just heard from Marquise because I think he's a really talented kid. And hopefully he can get back next year to full strength and they can roll. We're going to need him. I mean, we're going to need him at some point or another to come back into the fray. But
TJ in the house. Hey, what's going on, TJ?
What's up, TJ? How you doing? When Flowers was covering D-Hop, if I remember correctly, he only allowed 3 catches. The other 2 were underneath curls and cover 3. There's that curl route that they could have, yeah. He also covered him deep well. Did well. I think there was a couple times, Cameron, they gave him some help over the top to throw Kyler off when he would have double help and when he wouldn't. And that threw Kyler that led at times Kyler to just go away from D-Hop completely, anticipating the double team even when it wasn't there. I could be wrong.
We got TJ saying, will we re-sign Carson or spend some money on running back? We need a good running back. Without one, we are slow on offense.
So this is, I made this point on my podcast earlier this week, and I think this is where I lean back to on this DMAC, which is that, there's a going consensus out there with Chris Carson now that when Carson's out, Russell plays so much worse, the running game so much worse. And this is evidence that we now must need to go out and get Chris Carson signed. That, okay, you got to spend the 3 years, $27 million. You go out there and do it. And just too bad, so sad, you got to do it. I'd always contended that to give Carson the extension, to sign him again this offseason, I needed to see just simply 2 things. I know he's a productive running back. I know he runs solid. I know that he's going to be all in. I know I don't have any questions about his physical talent. Questions were, can you cure your fumble problems? And can you fix some of the injuries? 2 of your first 3 seasons have ended due to major injury. That's a problem. We need you in the playoffs. I don't need you for just a couple games a season. I need you at go time, at crunch time. So this year so far, how many games has he already missed due to injury? I can't re-sign a running back like that because, again, as I'll say, TJ, and I've said it before, running backs do not become less injured after you sign them to a major contract extension. It doesn't work that way. So if he's already having all of these myriad of injury issues right now, how much worse is it going to be once he signs the contract extension? And the other fact of this is I feel like people are ignoring Carlos Hyde should have just debunked this whole argument this last week. Carlos Hyde's performance should have debunked this whole argument this last week. And the reason for this, I'm going on a tangent here, Dmack, so stay with me.
Oh, no, I'm with you.
Everybody goes, oh, it's Carson. I've said, no, what you need is a talent like Carson. Carson's not a top 5 running back in this league. He's not better than Kamara. He's not better than McCaffrey. He's not better than Henry. He's not better than the guy at the Raiders. He's probably a top 10, maybe a top 15. That's what he is.
Shoot, I think Cleveland's got 2 running backs better.
Cleveland's got 2 running backs better. Chubb's better, 100%. People are overvaluing what he is as a running back, which is he's fine. He's also averaged like about 4.2 yards per carry over his career. That's not going to blow my dress up. You know what I mean? As the old saying goes. And I come back to, you look at Carlos Hyde this last game, how he ran, how effective he was. And I've said, we just got to get a talent like that. Hyde and Carson are very close on the talent scale. There's maybe this much difference between them.
I think from a physical, from like an athletic standpoint, they're very equal. But from a mentality, Carson just runs you. He's just more physical.
Carson is.
Yeah, he's just more physical than Hyde.
That's that little bit of difference between them. But for me, that little bit of difference between them, right now I'm paying 1 year, $4 million for Carlos Hyde right now.
Right. I see what
People are talking about the 3 year, $27 million. That's a vast difference in what you're paying. First, the production and the type of player is not that big of a difference. You can always find a Carlos Hyde in the offseason on a 1 year, $4 million deal, that type of player. You could have gotten Leonard Fournette at the start of the season for peanuts. You could have claimed him off the waiver wire for nothing. It was a $4 million deal for that. That guy would have been a perfect fit in our offense. He's not being utilized right in Tampa Bay. He's horrible, but he would have been better in our. I don't like Fournette either, and there's problems to his game. But just if you look at the running back situation, as opposed to we need a bell cow for the now and the future. If you just look at it we just need a bell cow in the back now for this year, for the right now. Get the good guy right now, and we'll solve it. We'll deal with the next issue next year. And meanwhile, you draft other guys that are the role players and in-between guys, and hopefully you land on another Carson like you did in the 6th or 7th round at him on this one. But I roll that route because we got to save our money for other places. We've got to spend our money in other places. And you can't pay every position. There's got to be positions that you're going back and dialing down to the cheap level on. And maybe people disagree with me on this, but
I'd rather go cheap on running back and spend more on our offensive line.
That's me too, because one's going to better the other. The other isn't necessarily going to better the other. And one also has an effect on Russell. So it works from a 2 standpoint aspect of it. But right now you've got Posick now lining himself up as our center of the future and the now. Damian Lewis is a potential star at the right guard position. Shell's been really good this year. He's surprised a lot of people. You have at least him going forward. So now you just have to concentrate on the left tackle and left guard position because Dwayne Brown's going to retire and Mike Iupati's going to retire. So those are the 2 positions where if you could reinforce those ranks, now you've solidified your offensive line for years to come. Not just now, but for years to come. I think it's too tantalizing a possibility to be held up by a running back who fumbles the ball a lot, who we don't know has fixed that, by the way. We don't know that he's fixed that, Dmack. Just because he hasn't any fumbles this year, how many carries does he have? 70, 80? That's not enough for me to go off and say, he solved it. This has been now solved. That's also fixed. Because let's not forget, folks, he had the worst fumbling problem in the entire NFL last year. The entire NFL. So we can't just take for granted that that's just suddenly been fixed off 70, 80 carries. And then somebody's going to type in the chat, Dmack, it's 115 carries. I know it's coming. Here we go. Cameron says, as much as I like Carson, I think we should let him go and try to find a running back in the draft. I'm glad you agree, man. But I don't think you're getting Carson on a smaller deal. This is his one time to make some money. He's going to go out and try to get the maximum amount of money he can get. Some lowly team out there will probably pay him. Some Jacksonville Jaguar team will give him 3 years for $27 million because they have a ton of cap space to spend.
Yep. TJ says, if it wasn't going to be raining, I think Russ could throw 5 TDs or 5+ TDs on that defense and put 40+ on them.
You could. They've not looked good this year. I mean, the Eagles have underwhelmed. They're looking like an aging team. Carson's regressing. They don't have a lot as far as playmakers go. They're still dangerous. They still are dangerous, Dmack. We can't take this game. I feel way more confident in the Giant game. I know people love the Giants on the rise, and I feel way more confident in the Washington game and the Jet game. This game doesn't have me as confident as those games will. But at the end of the day, as someone said, this should be a team you step on. At this point in time of year, the guys you're getting back into the fold, where you are from a health and quality standpoint, Russ, you should be able to step on this team. But watching them last week, they looked done.
What's crazy though? You talked about the Giants. I'm more fearful of the Giants sneaking a win out on us if we play bad or we don't show up than anybody else on the remaining season, other than the Rams. I think we get, We get swept by the Rams, and I think the Giants, if we don't come to play against the Giants, I think they have the capability. They have the personnel to do it. So
It's going to be a real problem during this time period in what you mentioned. It's a real possibility. You're going through a 6-game stretch where you have one team, the Rams. It's the only legitimate team you're playing against. Everybody else,
you could fall asleep easy.
It's like, we don't fall asleep for the Philly game, and then we don't fall asleep for the Jets game, but then here comes the Giants. You know, like you could easily go down that path and get caught in that trap. And I hope they don't at this point, because there's no room for error here. They've got to win out through these games to get that first round bye, in my opinion. I know you've got them right now in your early season prediction. You got them at the 4-loss level, so you're looking pretty good on your prediction with that. But and I think I did too, where I settled up at that spot. But at the end of the day, you've got to get to 13 wins to get the first round bye with Green Bay's, with the New Orleans, where they are, and especially Green Bay with what their schedule is going forward. Green Bay's got a cupcake schedule going forward, outside of maybe their division foes giving them some hard games at the end. But this is it. This time you got to lock in. That's the one thing, Dmack, that could keep them in the loop on that, is if they have to go week by week, knowing we don't have any room for error. You guys can get a first round bye if over the course of the next 6 weeks you play lights out and you go for it. You'll get a whole extra week off to chill. You know, I think that could be the one thing that maybe keeps them towing the line just a little bit. M Webb, what the hell is going on? What the hell is the NFL doing on with Josh Gordon? It was supposed to be a 30-day decision like 100 days ago. Yeah, I don't have a good answer.
Josh Gordon, he's done.
Yeah, I've got to think at this point, with as long as they're waiting on this, I'm going to start to lean in the direction of wondering if we get to the pass this week and after this game with the Eagles, it would seem like that they've just decided they're not going to let the guy play in the NFL anymore. The only thing I get, why would you make him go a year and a half if you're not just planning on having him out forever at that point? Brutal of them. Mohammed says the Seahawks don't have a defense. We'll see, Mohammed. They're starting to round out into shape. They didn't have defense early on the season. I agree with you there, but over the last course of 3-4 weeks, things are starting to come together a little bit, just a wee bit. Cameron says, but we also have Rashad Penny, who I think if he's our number one can be very productive. That is if we don't use him like Carson. Well, and I like me some Penny. You know that, Cameron. I think Dmack's a little lower on Penny.
Yeah.
But I like the thought of, look, you let Carson walk, you go to next season just from your starting point. You haven't added anybody else, but let's say you go then go add a Carlos Hyde type in free agency for a 1-year, $4 million deal. Then you would add him into Rashad Penny back from his ACL, Travis Homer, DJ Dallas. That's a crew of 4 guys that I can get by on. There's still room to add another guy if there's an injury that comes along at that point. That doesn't lock you into them for the full season. Midway, trade deadline, you can bring a guy in. Running backs are very easy to acclimate into a running offense. You know, you just get in there, take the rock and roll. So I would rather they go that route and just take that money and then allocate it in another place. So glad we're of like mind on that one, Cameron. And it was Michael Douglas. That's who it was in The Ghost in the Darkness. You wanted a good movie, Dmack. Good movie for you tonight with your girl.
That's on my list.
The Ghost in the Darkness. It's awesome. Still holds up too. I watched it like a year ago. It's still pretty good. Marvin Dumas, do you think the slogan "Let Russ Cook" is over or still going? Marvin, it should still be going to a degree, but probably not, because again, I think this last game they went 50-50 on the running thing. They went back to that old Seahawks style. And Carroll's going to look at that and go, yeah, that worked. That's our formula. We're staying in the formula. And then he just locks it in. And he's like, we're not moving out of this. I don't care about your cooking.
Yeah.
I don't care about your barbecue.
I seen Carroll getting kind of frustrated with that whole slogan and stuff. Like he's kind of annoyed at it about at this.
It goes against
point in
everything
time.
in his.
You got Russell Wilson who's leading in touchdowns right now, ain't he? Like what else do y'all want to see? Like, what do you mean let Russ cook? Like he's like, you know.
I that's the problem I have with it, is I understand wanting to go back a little bit and get yourself, let's dial back from the 45 attempts a game down to like 35. But if they slide back into the under 30 attempts thing and we're at like 27, 28 attempts a game with Russell, to me, that's silly. And it's the offense can be so much more productive than that. It doesn't have to play in this mold of just protectivism with the football and how they run their offense. They can play a little bit more free and open than that. I hope they do. But it's hard to see when he's going to see last week as the marker against Arizona in a big game and go, that worked. That's what we need to do. That's what, and like, you know, yes, it worked kind of, but and it was good with Hyde. But let's not completely throw it away.
It was a good campaign, but I think it's dead now.
Yeah, it's probably been put on the back burner. Jeremy Chun, how you doing? Welcome on in the chat. Joey Mendez, as Dunlap keeps flashing, he's opening up Reed, Ford, and Collier to make plays. It's trickled down the last few weeks. Green is picking it up also. Do you see that? I always had that tough one with that necessarily. So I could see it in a case of when you have a guy like, let's say, Aaron Donald, right? And it's a 3-tech, and he's going to maybe get one-on-one with the left guard. And now every play you have to take a center down and combo him.
Yeah. It's definitely harder for defensive linemen, especially when they're not getting double teamed. You make a great point with that. If they're not drawing a double team or anything substantial, or if they're like not shifting the line to protect, and sliding the line to make sure that you're guarded, I don't think you make the next guy better on the defensive line. It's just no way to do it possibly. I don't know.
And I mean, I think some of it is a little bit of maybe I can't speak to this for sure, Joey, but some of it's probably also them maybe getting the snap counts down a little bit too. The defense is not on the football field 65, 75 plays a football game. So you're having less opportunities to see some of these guys getting washed out or pushed down the field because they're fresher and they're making an impact because they feel better. I think that's probably.
And also too, I mean, natural competition breeds that, like, hey, I want to step my game up. This guy is coming in and, showing out, and like, I want some of the headline, like, you know what I mean? So like competition breeds, the best. Iron sharpens iron. So I think it's got something to do with that. These guys are very prideful, and they like, hey, this new guy can't come in and outshine me and outdo me. I got a contract to play for next year too.
They're right. I'm right. I think that there's an element to that. And football's a momentum sport, be it the swings of a game, be it the attitude in the locker room, be it a positional group like the defensive line that's been downtrodden and beaten on and told they're not any good and they can't do anything. And then suddenly now one of the guys on that line starts to pop and go and roll, and you go, oh, hey, okay, maybe the rest starts getting that feeling, that vibe starts to trickle on
confidence.
Down. It's a sport as much as any. All sports are momentum based. Basketball, baseball, they all have an element of momentum. Football may be more than any of them because emotion wraps so much into it than anything else. Where emotion is just you have to be emotional to be in the sport. Elena McCollum, how you doing, Elena? Seahawks defense is just getting chemistry and don't even have Darrell Taylor. Be very interesting to see what Darrell Taylor has to bring in the mix. Let's not forget with this guy, they traded up in the second round. They traded their second round pick and a third round pick to trade up into the second round to get Darrell Taylor out of Tennessee. They seem to see something in this guy that really jumped out to them and said, he's going to be able to come in here and fix our pass rushing issues, not wholly, but help out in fixing those issues right out the gate. Because you can see that with the way that Carol's talked about it a couple of times. He's referenced it. You can see it in the applicable other moves they made, only getting Mayoa, only getting Bruce Irvin in free agency, not really going out for another pass rusher all the way up until Carlos Dunlap.
Is he going to be able to play this year?
Yeah, he's supposed to be, I think, coming back for this game. So we'll see.
Philly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Darrell Taylor is. The thing is, there was this Instagram post of him, and he was doing this shirtless Instagram post, and my man looks like maybe it's just that he's one of those tall guys, 6'4", so he looked like 230. I mean, he's shredded.
Like a basketball guy anyway, though. Like, naturally.
Yeah. Maybe that's just it. He's got maybe that basketball body, and he'll fill in or whatever down the road a little bit. But he looked a little slight for me, so that's the part where I'm like, I hope he's.
I've seen guys like that on the defensive line. It was I mean, that's not.
It wasn't a soft body. It wasn't like he was looking pudgy or like just.
He just looked lean. He just looked like a boxer almost, like a
boxer.
Yeah, exactly. Not a football player. Yeah.
And you're trying to think of like defensive end, and you're like, you're gonna have to go up with a 320-pound tackle is gonna put his hands on you,
right?
Like what are you gonna do there with that? Like, okay,
dig a hole.
That bend and quickness better be super elite. You know what I mean? He better be getting hands, this high off the ground, with that bend.
Right. Getting low.
XD Zachary, would you rather play Hurts or Wentz, Dmack?
Would I play?
It's a great question. That's why I laugh. It's a question at the start of the season. You'd be like, that's ridiculous.
If I could put Hurts' legs on Wentz's arm, I would play them both. So I don't know. That's a hard one.
But whose brain are you taking?
Hurt. Definitely Hurt.
We got to assemble this thing, man.
At this point, man, like Wentz is crazy. This dude has lost his mind. He has lost his natural mind.
He is one of the wildest quarterbacks I've ever seen play. At least in the last 10 years, one of the wildest quarterbacks I've seen play.
Oh man, he's going way beyond like anything I've ever seen. I mean, based on like the type of money that he's getting paid, this guy has gone too far. Like when it comes to decision making, holding the ball, patting the rock, taking unnecessary sacks, not throwing the ball away. I mean, you name it. Like, you can go down the list.
It's a list. It ain't just a
bad.
one. I've
Then
looked
he
at
shows you
some
this
of the-
one glimpse of a great throw.
Oh.
Like, it's like, you. I can't stand you, bro.
He does too. He throws these throws at like 65 yards off his back foot, dropped in the bottom of a bucket with 4 hands of defense around for a touch. And you're like, what? And then he makes some stupid throw that's like a rookie wouldn't throw. And you then go right back to the same place. Like, huh? What? And I do think it's that line stuff. I've really come back watching Russell in that 2017 season. Really let me believe those quarterbacks get beat up and they start sensing stuff's coming and seeing, and they're pushing through their reads too fast and everything's getting sped up a bit. I think that's just gotten him a bit this year over the course of the year. And it's caused him to regress. He needs to have a clean offensive line.
I mean, to your point though, you said, he first started off, he had a great offensive line. So he's accustomed to like having a lot of time to just go through progressions and just sit comfortably in the pocket. And that's not the case no more. He has to realize that and understand that and play, good football. And just, like I said, just live to see another down, another day, bro.
It's hard though. It's like you've been eating these fancy meals in the city, and then you go out to the country and they're handing you these, just basic, like, here's some mashed potatoes, here's this with no flavoring to it. And you're like, I got to eat this. I'm like, yeah, this is what you got to eat now. But I want that. I had that. That was awesome. I could do all these magical things with that. Like, yeah, but now you just got to have this. It's a difference.
Elena says she can't wait to see Daryl Taylor play. Like I said, I am too. I didn't even know he was coming back. So, I mean, the chat is on there. I didn't know he was coming back. And I'm excited to see what he got. I mean, they put all, their dimes in a one bucket on him. I mean, obviously they think highly of him. I remember going back to the draft and just seeing how pumped the room was when they got him and stuff. Like, they knew something that we didn't know. Like, I'm like, I don't know. Let me see. I want to see it.
They definitely they've got something they're locked in on him, Lynn, and that confidence they have to make that kind of move. When they do something like that, they did it with Jaron Reed a couple of years ago and it turned out well. It tends to be a guy that's going to be at least a good functional player for you in the NFL. Will he be a star? Who knows? Who knows on that stuff? But can he come in and provide some impact, which is what we're speaking to? Provide just some impact initially on, not playing and play out, but give us some flashes in the game and the rotational snaps that we give you. You go 20 snaps a game. In those 20 snaps, give us some kind of production. You'll have fresh legs. You'll be ready to roll, go at your full speed, hit it. So, yep, we're hyped as well. Lane also says Parkinson 6'7". Yep, he's a big boy. Colby Parkinson's a big tight end. He's got some ball skills too, D. 6'7" and ball skills.
Yeah.
Emmett Brown says, listening to Russ's presser, it doesn't sound like he's too hyped to go back to a running heavier attack. I think Pete's style is built to go one and done in the playoffs. Could be, Emmett, and I wouldn't be surprised to hear Russ downtrodden by that. He's on this prolific pace, and then your defense can't play well, and then now you're going to slide back into this running style, and it's sort of like, from his standpoint, I bet I'd be a little bit upset with that too. And it's worth monitoring. It's worth monitoring where Russell's mentality is going to be at this. Pete Carroll just signed a 5-year extension. He's not going anywhere. The hopes that he would retire, and then Russ could get his offensive-minded head coach in here, and he'd run this great offense for Russ and make it all easy on him, and Russ could just flourish like hell. We're not going to probably be getting that. So there is a little bit of a monitoring situation here, not to get negative, but just as far as what Russ feels about this as we go forward, if they do slide back into this run-heavy set, which I think they kind of will, especially if they keep having. Imagine they have success with it again this week, D. I think they get both Penny and Hyde back or they get both Penny and Carson back.
Yeah, Carson was almost back last week. I think he could have played last week, to be honest.
I do too. I think they just wanted, they're just being cautious. But they go out, they rush for 170 yards. Is Seattle going to go away that to the let Russ cook again the week after when you're playing another beaten down team like Washington or Jets or the Giants? No, you'll just keep running on them. And it'll look like, from Carroll's standpoint, it'll confirm what he wants to see, which is the running game, but you're going against, weak opponents. And maybe it does come up, Emmett.
If they're smart, I mean, if Seattle's smart, man, like, I would go to a run heavy offense because none of these teams are going to throw us and outscore us. So let's just run the ball, get out of these games healthy and prepare for the playoffs. If they really, really, really have their eyes on the prize. I mean, let's just get out of these games healthy, no injuries, and just win these games by however margin, 3 points, whatever the case may be, and just get out of these games and get back to, getting our guys, ready for the playoffs and healthy. So, I mean, if you really, really got your eyes on the prize.
Yep. I agree. I think you just got to do what you can to keep that. And that's going to be, to your point on that, Dmack, some of that shortening the games, which is what you're going to get with the running style. You're shortening them down, not as many plays, get your guys through the process. I think the key on it with this point is going to be that if they get in the playoffs like they did a couple years ago against the Cowboys, and they have a running game plan that they're trying to institute, they need to go away from that if after the first quarter they're saying there's no success there. And they need to go to more of this passing on first down. Those two aspects of things, if they can implement that into the postseason, I think they can still have a lot of success with it. But they just can't get locked into that Cowboy game was like the pinnacle of it, where through three quarters you just kept hammering and it wasn't working. And then you finally let Russ cook at the end of the game and he goes off, but he runs out of time. You don't want to duplicate that again and going into the playoffs. I don't think they would, Emmett. I think they'd go to more of a passing attack quickly if things were getting held up and they couldn't, make any headway. Emmett Brown says, I love DK, but his high point skills aren't that great. I've seen him high point one ball this year and it was still a body catch. My guy needs to catch the ball away from his body.
That's a tough one because I was a big critic of, even to this point, kind of still, I was a big critic of his hands. I didn't think he had the softest of hands coming out of college. When you talk about high pointing the ball, they really don't put him in too many positions to just like on the goal line, just jump and go get it. Like, it's just weird. They use him more like slants, using his big body to box people out to score in the end zone. So they don't really give him too many like jump ball situations. Most of the times he's running underneath a nice Russell Wilson floater through the air, and he's just running underneath it and taking off and going with it. So I don't know how many balls situations that he's actually been in a true jump ball situation that he had to win one-on-one with. So to your point, like I said, you haven't seen it much because they haven't done it much really.
Yeah, and you've got the one game last year, let's say in the Eagle game. I mean, there's that signature moment in the playoff game where they throw it up to him and he goes up and high points that ball over two defenders, and I know he doesn't do it a lot, but again, like Dmack said, that they don't ask him to do it as much. They've got other things they've installed them for him for the game plan on it. Maybe it's not to his strengths, but he's got so many other great strengths with it. It doesn't necessarily matter. Hands, he could have not necessarily amazing hands and still be a phenomenal wide receiver in this league because he's so gifted physically, and he could be such a freak show with his myriad of talents matched up with Russell Wilson. Like you said, the floater balls and those things coming in, that just helps him. If there's a deficiency to his game, it helps him overcome it and still be able to shine out and do well. I think the Rams take 2 or 3 more L's, says somebody. Maybe. 12-man nation says, go Hawks, go Hawks. Cameron Hughes, he needs not to catch his damn body. He could have three TDs on Thursday. He could. The one ball that Russell threw in there was a rocket shot.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Russell be gunning that thing, boy. Like, he be gunning that pill. And y'all don't understand, like, when that ball is on you, it's on you with Russell. Y'all, I don't think that, like, chat really understands how fast and how much velocity that this guy, he's a baseball player, for God's sakes. Like, this guy's throwing the ball, like, with super rip, bro. Like, I don't know.
That one in the end zone to me was the other one that he dropped was bad. The drops haven't been bad throughout this year. You can pick a moment or here or two that like, oh, well, maybe he should have caught that, but he's been pretty solid, including game winner with the Vikings, having to make a tough catch in that with a good defender hanging off of him. But that ball in the end zone, Dmack he called it literally, Russell himself called it his Randy Johnson fastball. And quarterbacks know they're not supposed to be doing that. And there's this funny tape you guys can watch on YouTube of John Schneider doing the quarterback school with Brett Favre. And he's got Favre sitting there. It's for jokey purposes, right? It's Favre after he's retired. And they're just, because he used to be his coach. Gruden did. He used to be his quarterback's coach. So they go way back. And John goes, now look at this, Brett. And he puts on the tape, and it's Brett back in his practice film days with Green Bay. He's like, what are you doing here? You're rocketing the ball all over. And Brett's dropping back and running like a simple post or a skinny. And I mean, when I say he's lasering, he's throwing it with all of his body and the follow through. Like, it's taking him a couple of steps after his throw just to lay out the ball. And you're watching, this is Favre. I mean, it is. And he's like, you're breaking receivers' hands. He's like, and he's just like, Robert Brooks doesn't even know what to do here. And it's ricocheting off their hands going up. When you get an NFL pro quarterback throwing him out as hard as he can throw it from about 10 yards away, even the best of wide receivers outside of maybe DeAndre Hopkins or who else has got the great, maybe
what's his name? From the Cardinals, the old veteran.
Oh, Fitzgerald could do it too. Yeah,
Fitzgerald.
he's
That's
got
probably
those
the
hands
only
too. I mean,
two people on this earth that can catch any fastball thrown to him.
I don't think there's a lot of receivers making that catch in that mode. That was as hard as Russ threw that. I mean, he threw that
But
thing.
to Russ's credit, that's how they designed the play, though.
Yeah,
They
he's
designed
got to
him
do it that way.
yeah, he's got to throw it that fast.
Yeah.
It's a small window to throw in first and foremost. And like I said, the timing just probably was off with that because DK in practice, they're going one speed. And then in the game, it's a whole nother thing with Russell just like making sure that he gets that ball on him in a proper place. So it probably just took him by shock with the timing of it. Like by the time he got out of his route, he's looking over, ball is in his mouth. Like, I mean, it's just, you know what I mean? Guys, come on. Yeah, you got to give him a little bit of love, a little bit of slack.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. I think he'll be fine as we go forward. And I wouldn't be surprised if we watch with his work ethic, those hands continue over the years to get better and better and better. TJ says Rush should have a fun day against the secondary. I don't know, TJ. The chat's telling me that we're going to have a lot of rain. That's what the weather seems to be saying. Cameron says those running backs are looking pretty good. The UW running backs. I wouldn't be surprised if Kamari Pleasant or Richard Newton found themselves in Seattle. Could be. I got to look into those guys a little bit more. Marvin Dumas, fun fact, if we didn't draft LJ Collier, we could have gotten Derrick Henry. Well, here's a fun fact back to you, Marvin, and that's a sad fact. It makes me sad-faced. I don't know that Derrick Henry has the kind of career he's had if he comes to Seattle. He needs to have offensive lines that open up holes so that he can get up to his running speed so that he can get into the second level. If you've got guys penetrating, what we've seen with a guy like Carson for years, I keep trying to combo them. We've seen with Carson is sometimes he makes out he's got 1 yard to get, he gets 4, or there's a negative 1 yard play, but he gets 5 out of it because he's just so hard. Henry's not that kind of guy. You hit him in the backfield, he's going down.
A crater of a hole to run through.
Crater of a hole.
We're not providing any of that type of run blocking downhill for him. And so we talk about this a lot on this page, though. It's a lot of talent out there that could have been drafted before. But when it comes to fit with the team, we got to keep that in consideration. We talk about that with a lot of guys that we say, oh, we should have got, or like fit is everything in the NFL. There's a reason why there's positions. There's a reason why there's scouters out there, because there's certain guys that fit in certain schemes. And that's all NFL football is a scheme, and it's about styles and it's about fits. And so when I say the Rams are going to beat us 2 times out of the year, it's not because on paper they have the best talent or this, that, and the third. Is because from a schematic standpoint, from a stylistic standpoint, they just have an advantage on us. That's just all it is. Like, I mean, they just have our number when it comes to X's and O's.
Yeah, that's it.
Personnel.
Couldn't say it better myself. But he's a good player. Just as Dee said, you got to get the right guy for your scheme, for your team. Who fits best for you? That's probably like somebody's mentioned with DK on the draw. Well, maybe he doesn't have the great hand. Well, but he's the best player for the best fit, the best scheme with the other player he's playing with. That's the part that really gets me to that hyped point that I do. D Nugget says, Brandon and Dmack, happy Thanksgiving. Love the channel.
Happy Thanksgiving, D Nugget.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, D Nugget. Happy Thanksgiving with Marvin, Cameron, TJ. Happy Thanksgiving. Shervins, DK needs to start attacking and high pointing the ball like Megatron. Did he always tries waiting for it to drop into his arms? He needs to utilize his physical gifts. We'll see, folks. I can see why you guys are harping on some of this, but again, too, he's been more productive in his second year than Megatron was in his second year. So, when we're looking at trajectory and where he's going and where Megatron was at in his first year and a half, was he high pointing the ball as much as we got to see in his prime? Was he doing all that stuff? Maybe did some of that stuff come along with his career?
I mean, the fact that we're even having a debate about him being one of the top 5 receivers in his second year has just got something to say that we did something right.
That's right.
Like let's give DK some time to grow and mature in this league. He's done nothing but gotten better each week.
Right. That's it.
What more can you ask from a guy but getting better? Like,
and he has 2 drops in this game. It's kind of the one chance for people that maybe are his naysayers to jump on him, because throughout this year he's been absolutely consistent through every game. You put him down for 6 catches, 115 yards every game and a touchdown every game. It's like, what do you want from that? At that point, you didn't have him.
the guy made one of the greatest defensive plays in NFL history, running down Buda Baker. Like, that's one of the greatest plays. Like, don't get it twisted. That's one of the greatest plays in NFL history. Like, come on, man. It's not even on offense.
Yeah, you guys need to be more excited here by DK. You guys might be happy. The drops might have got you guys just tempered a little bit. Don't get tempered on this one. Don't go the opposite direction. If there's one player, and I tend to be pretty low key with guys to not overhype guys up. This is one place that you can feel free to hype up. Feel free in knowing after years of watching NFL wide receivers in this sport, DK after watching years of NFL wide playing with guys next to guys, we're seeing something here that's different. It's maybe not exactly what you want it to be. Well, I want him to be perfect in hands and have Megatron, a high point like may not be what you're trying to make him as a facsimile of another player.
Right. You can have Stephon Diggs that gives up on every single play that he's not throwing the ball to. I mean, how about that? Like, let's compare him to some other talent out there that's been in the league 4 or 5 years, 6 years, and from a mentality standpoint, where guys just give up because they're not, the ones in the end zone scoring all the points. So, let's get a guy. Craig, he got a great head. He's got a great mentality. He's a winner from that standpoint. If he doesn't make another catch in this league, he's a winner. Like, his mentality is team first. He blocks. I mean, he's giving you 110%. What can you ask from a player at that point?
Same way. I feel like get hype on this one. TJ says the Giants defense isn't actually that bad. Let's also consider that they're playing a last place schedule and they play 6 games a year in the NFC East. So they're maybe not as bad, but I think that we should still be able to handle that team pretty easily if we're the team we think we are.
I see what TJ's saying though. Like, that's one team that I'm afraid of if we fall asleep at the wheel, because like I said, they do have the pieces to make something happen. But I see what TJ is hinting to on that one.
Emmett says I actually think the Washington game is our possible loss. I see Alex Smith as the smartest quarterback left who will dink and dunk us to death. I don't believe in our defense yet. 1.5 games aren't enough to get me back on them. Understand. I get where you're coming from. You need to see more data, as I like to see. You don't want the sample size, Emmett. You want to see a little bit more put through. And it's understandable. We'll see with Alex Smith. I don't tend to be I know he is a dink and dunker, but I'm
not afraid of Alex Smith.
I think the thing with him being the dink and dunker is, he's the dink and dunker who can't get you over the top. He doesn't have the arm strength. He didn't before the injury. I doubt he has it now, the arm strength to get it over the top on you. So you really are going to be able to stay in those single high safety looks. You can dump all the cover 2 stuff.
Here's the thing. You have to be more than a dink and dunker when you play against us, because that plays into that's our style. We like teams to dink and dunk. We tighten up in the red zone, and we won't let you score touchdowns. And so Russell's going to go down and walk the ball down and score a touchdown. You're going to get a field goal. You're not going to win too many games playing that stylistic type of football against us. Look at how Fitzpatrick, when we played Miami the first time, that's the exact same kind of thing that Miami tried to do against us when, he was just dinking, dunking and, dropping it down, check downs and all these, take as many yards you want in front of us, but we're not giving up the big play. You're not going to beat us in that type of stylistic offense. So
no, it's a formula to the defense. It's why we've harped on for the whole year, getting the front 4 pressure, because that allows you to drop that zone and then eventually get the tip ball, or eventually have a mistake throw where they throw it in your guys' hand because you got a close defender at that point. So it's a valid fact. It's going to be a tough game, maybe to a degree, but I still just go back to say we should win that game. That's Washington. That's just not a good football team right now.
You beat us. The only key to beat us right now is trickery, deception, and all types of exotics. If you make us think, if you make us unsure of what we're doing, that's the only way you can exploit our defense. If you can disguise and mask what you're actually doing in front of us.
Right. So but there's only so much disguising Alex going to do, because he's not going to challenge you with all the throws in the book. He ain't going to challenge you with, his legs like Kyler Murray can.
He's not getting outside of the pocket. He's not in any kind of threat from a scramble or bootleg. He's just going to sit in the pocket. That's perfect for us.
Yeah, I agree. Agreed. Hawks are looking at Jennings, so I'm guessing that there's no chance for Gordon returning this year, says B. Russ. Gordon suspended just one too many times, it looks like. Bummer. It is a bummer. That does suck. If it turns out to be the case, it's going to be a tough one there. I've really been counting on him at some point or another to be in there and injected back in. So, Emmett says, can we please, for the love of God, get my boy Disley the Rock up the seam as magic with him and Russ? I'd like to see some seam routes to our tight end. I don't think we've seen one of those this year. Maybe one to Olsen, but you attack the modern defenses, especially the cover 3 stuff when you see it a lot that way. I'd like to see more of it too, man. I think we're going to see a little more Disley now.
I wonder if it's because Russell really can't. Russell can only throw kind of like outside routes because he can't really see over the big guys in the offensive line unless he's stepping up in the pocket. That's the only way you really see him throw in the middle of the field. It's kind of weird. I wonder if that's it. Could be,
because he did throw a couple of them last year to Disley, but he's not gone to it. I mean, they've not used it at all this year. I mean, I can't remember a throw up the seam, and which I thought's odd. You had the 2 tight end sets. I thought we'd see a lot more of go off play action with the 2 tight ends and have them both run a seam route and put the safety in a pickle to pick one and then hit the other one, do something like that. They haven't gone to it at all, though. I don't know. It's been odd. It's been a little strange. Marvin Dumas, real facts. If we didn't draft Jermaine Ifedi, we could have gotten Derrick Henry. a lot of Derrick Henry love here. Hillel, I think we should try to sign Carson for max of $5 million a year. Very unlikely he stays. So I think we should keep Hyde and pick up the average Rob like Mike Davis and roll with those 3 guys. Yeah, I'm glad we're on the same page on that. Well, I agree. And I'm fine. $5 million a year, I'm fine. $8, $9 million a year, I'm not fine. So I'll pay a running back on a 1 year or a 3 year, $4 or $5 million deal, but he's not going to take that. He'll get paid probably a little bit more somewhere else in free agency. Just my opinion. Dmack is faded SS is DK Metcalf top 10 wide receiver
right now this season.
Yeah.
I would say yes.
Yeah, and faded, yes. Faded's got a couple guys he puts in there. Allen, Robinson, Galladay, Godwin, Cooper, Mike Evans. I take Cooper out. I take Godwin
I'd even
out.
say Robinson out.
Robbins be out too for me on that. I think you can put argument of Galladay and Evans of maybe being above him on that, but he's absolutely to me a top 10 receiver right now in this league this season.
Just this season, yes, I would say top 10.
Jeffrey A. Thistle says Eagle game feels like a trap. I might think that, Jeffrey, if this was a 10 a.m. game on the road, middle of the season, it's prime time, Monday night. We know Coach Carroll and Russell show up for those type of games. They get extra hyped. They could tell us every day about it. Just another game. Just no, they do better in primetime games. So I'm going to lean back on that record and say they're going to be pretty juiced for this one. Spud Horner, love you guys. Do you think we should try and draft a tackle or test free agency in the offseason or both? Do you get your franchise left tackle in the draft, Dmack? Well, or do you go out and try to find him in free agency?
I say through the draft. I say build through the draft.
And I'm an old free agent. What I want to do in this situation is find the next Andre Whitworth, find the next Dwayne Brown. I want to find the left tackle out there whose value is going to be slightly depressed because he's 32, 33 years old, but still has a lot of football left in him. Maybe he's been playing for a bad team for years throughout his career. I'm going to try to pluck up that guy and get him on a decent level market deal because I think the Dwayne Brown probably is going to flirt with retirement this offseason, and we're going to need to get a ready-made left tackle in place rather than having some time to let it develop and let the guy get his feet wet. And, as well as I don't think if last year's draft was so deep at left tackle as it was, you just figure the offset of this year's draft is going to be weaker. It usually is when it goes like that. TJ Wilborn says, will we re-sign Dunlap or is he a tape type player? He's got another year on his deal at $10.5 million. So I think he remains, don't you, D-Mac? They probably, I keep him on a 1 year, 10.5 at that point. I mean,
I think you talk about, all that after his contract is up. I don't think you sign him early.
No, I think $10.5 million. You get a guy who pushes for 10 sacks a year, if not more, plays good run stuffing ability. You rotate him in with your Darrell Taylor, Rasheem Green, LJ Collier. You have a nice rotation now. There are 4 guys without whatever you have to go out there and do it in free agency to get another maybe guy or 2 in there. So you're starting to get some development there. But no,
Sherman's isn't sure that Darrell Taylor will be back yet. So
okay, there was some back and forth on these Shermans. I thought I had saw some stuff, but it wasn't certain. So could be. Anderson, how you doing, Anderson? Let's go, boys. I needed this stream tonight. Let's go, Anderson, and happy Thanksgiving, my guy.
Yep, appreciate you, Anderson.
Nathan Hoover, I don't speak Chinese, but I can only think it says we're awesome
Go
and you're
Hawks, I
awesome.
think.
Or go Hawks. That's right. That's what it says. Maxwell Stern, it would feel so good to blow out the Eagles. Blowouts are nice, especially with this team and the way they play their games and everything being down to the wire. It is nice when you occasionally get that game where you just go, oh, okay. Just
Jeffrey saying Seahawks don't blow out anyone. That is true. There's no blowout here.
It's been true.
Blowout.
That will be put to the test over the next few weeks as you're playing somebody like the Jets and those opponents. We'll see if the Jets are going to hang in there with us.
But you know, when we get a lead like that, you know what happens. We go in that fucking prevent, and it's just terrible, man. Like we just go in that soft ass.
We go to the soft prevent, man. Like that's possible.
Go every single time, and we could be up 21-0, and they'll go in that sit 12 yards off the ball and just like, oh man,
they try it again, and I'll push them out of bounds, 13 yards. What's up, Team 12? You haven't missed anything. We're just talking basic stuff out here, you know. Okay, so he's not coming back yet. Maybe next week with Penny. Okay, well that sucks. Another week to wait.
Team 12 said, "What's up? What have I missed? Come on, man, you missed everything, bro.
Everything.
It's been some hot takes.
Everything.
Super hot takes."
Maxwell says, I feel like Taylor's going to be rusty for his first couple of games, but it'll be good in time for the playoffs. Well, we need him. We need another pass rusher in addition to Dunlap. I don't think Dunlap's just enough. So we definitely need something from this kid.
Hey, Maxwell, speaking of rust, though, I think Jamal Adams, if you look at him, man, he be sucking wind, bro. He hands on his knees, and he can't breathe out there, bro. That's who needs to like whip back into shape. That dude is winded.
No training camp, no off-season camp.
That dude is winded.
Injured most of the year. I agree. Yeah, he's been out for all the time. To me, it's makes sense. You know, it's like, yeah, I expect him to take a while to rotate. It's the problem when you can't train these guys or get them back into the loop.
Jeffrey said just what I said. They go into prevent defense if they get a big lead and let them right back into the game. Every time.
Is. To me, you take your chances at one point or another with it. I know the coaches get so scared of what if we give a big play over the top and then they get back. So what? In this year, in this age, with the way offenses play, you know, you occasional big play versus, you know, being aggressive and keeping your defense up on their toes. I'll take that over having them on their heels and tell them, because we've just seen too much. It just doesn't. There's no wayward throw a quarterback's going to make when everything's wide open. He's not being challenged, and he's got 4 guys to throw to on his reads, all wide open. Like you're not going to luck yourself into an interception at that point or get a fumble. We've just seen it too often.
TJ is saying Pete honestly needs to go. He's so stupid to think Russ should not throw. Why pay a guy $35 million to a quarterback and hand the ball off to a running back? Like what?
Well, as Rodney Burr said below you, exactly. That's I think me and Dmack are in the same place. You're going to pay this guy this much. You're going to go in this route. Then you got to get your money's worth out of him. And if not, then what are we doing here? And this is what's led us to some of us out there speculating about Russ's future at times, and especially as now we get Coach Carroll's extension, because you go, okay, if this isn't moving, if Russell Wilson wants to be in an offense where he's throwing the ball, we have an immovable object, and they're coming up against each other, and which is going to give way, because somebody's got to give way at this point, and it's probably not going to be Carroll if he's here for the next 5 years. We'll see how the situation plays out, but it would be troubling on a couple of different standpoints if they've just decided to fully dump the let Russ cook and decided it just didn't work with as much success as they had with it through the early part of the year. Your defense has been the problem throughout the season, not the fact you let Russ cook. You had a couple games of interceptions there, but that's what we call the price of doing business when you let the man throw a few extra times. You know, it's not going to happen over the course of the season. It's a couple game stretch, you know. That seemed like a grosser overreaction if they did that, Dmack. I'd be annoyed.
And Jeffrey saying we'll see Penny after Carson gets hurt. Just Jeffrey's on the road.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Jeffrey's on it. He's got a crystal ball over there.
TJ says, I understand we should run, but not every time like Pete wants. Look, what happened to Penny hurt, Carson hurt, Hyde hurt, Homer hurt. This is why we should pass. You can make the argument too. Your running backs tend to get beat up a lot running as much as you try to run them, and that you end up with less running backs in the year, almost down to the bare minimum when you go this approach. It's happened the last 4 out of the last 5 years. Our running back room has just been decimated. Thomas Rawls and Eddie Lacy's and everybody getting injured.
Man, we've lost so many running backs. It's hard to even keep up, man.
Think about it.
Last game they had what's his name? They had two running backs. They had Alex Collins that came back, and then they had
Bo
what's his other?
Scarborough.
Scarborough came back. I'm like, where are they reviving these running backs from, bro?
like literally like in a grocery store stocking shelves, like, do you still got your legs?
Bro,
like, it's like a scene out of a movie. Do you still got it?
Bro, Pete like literally in Pike Place, like, oh, what's going on, Scarborough? You want to come play, bro? We're playing.
You're living in Seattle, dude? How's it? You like, still running? You still 4'6"?
Like, what the? It's terrible, man. Recycling running backs.
Poor Scarborough, did you see him get the leg split? He got they split.
That's what happened when you come off the couch and eating Cheeto puffs and then talking about you about to tote the rock. Come on, man.
Oh, that poor guy. They told it says groin popped. Like that when it pops, like, ooh, sounds awful.
Been eating off Cheeto puffs and I don't know, and ice cream late night every night, bro. And he talking about some, oh yeah, man.
I'm ready,
I don't
coach.
know what happened. I don't know what happened, coach.
I've been doing my yoga. I've been getting down, coach. I've been working on my. I don't know.
He talking about it hurts, coach.
It hurts so bad. Out the rest of the season, pay me.
They touched the hamstring. They say, oh, where is it? Right there. It's tender.
Dude, just don't touch it. It's no.
Tender.
Chris Miner says it all starts with the play action. Russ should cook in the playoffs. Start out quickly. I like the play action. Does work a little bit better when you're running. There's actually not as much evidence for that as you'd think, Chris. That play action, for instance, play action tends to work whether you have a good running game or not. Like when you run, the theory is, okay, we're running the ball. So now our play action will work good because we've been running so good and the defenses have to play. The advanced stats don't technically back that up. The advanced stats just seem to show that play action just works. It's just, it befuddles the defense to thinking they got to do one thing and now you got to do something else. But that would be one of the offsets you'd hope would at least be a little bit beneficial to them as we go into playoffs if they go to that play action, if they're running as much as we are expecting them to run as we move forward. Cameron Hughes says he's more of a pound the rock guy in Madden, not a risk taker. Rodney Burr says, I don't know what people like him so much when you can just get a running back down in the middle of the rounds in the draft. Agreed, Rodney, and he's talking about Chris Carson, just why people love him so much. I think people fall in love with their own players, and Carson's got a style that's the closest to what we've seen in Marshawn Lynch since Marshawn Lynch was here. So it's understandable why people who so revere Marshawn Lynch would then become so revering of a guy that's the new model. But they're overlooking some of his issues and liabilities, and they're just getting caught up in that model aspect. And you've got to see the full picture with every given player and the full picture with the situation, specifically the salary cap situation, and the fact that we're going down to $175 million this next offseason. We're losing $25 million of the cap as we go into next offseason. It's going to affect everybody. Somebody's got to have to pay the price somewhere on the roster. For me, it's running back.
It's one of those things that Seattle's just built up a equity at running back where it's just they're just beloved. And whoever's going to be the starting running back from here out is just going to be a really sacred guy. I don't know.
And the guys that grind and they fight for every yard, people relate to that, and it just endears them that much more to folks than the Sean Alexander types that some people divisive on the fan base with, oh, he's just so soft, just looking for the big play. They like the guy that's just I'll take the 3 yards in a cloud of dust and I'll fight for every inch of it. There's something, I don't know, some people just enjoy about that. Got a cornerback question here for you, Dmack. When we get Shaquille Griffin back, and if Dunbar is still injured, Chris Miner asks, do you think we should start Reed over Flowers on the corner? Who do you like better, Flowers or Reed on the outside? I know. I was in the same place. Somebody asked it me on Saturday. I didn't have a good answer.
I say Flowers. I'll go with Flowers.
Yeah, I lean back to the known quantity aspect of it too at this point. I think he's playing better and better. I want to see if he can keep his trajectory of ascending just a little bit. He's not playing out of his mind, just playing better and better, solid, getting more and more confidence. Because that's what I think his issues were earlier in the year is I think he was still beat up from last year in that Packers playoff game where Devontae Adams gave it to him. Devontae Adams gives it to a lot of cornerbacks. So I don't think he needed to get caught up with it, but he's finally got that out of his system and he's on the straight and narrow. So I'm with Dmack. I'm leaning Trey. Boom shakalaka. How you doing? Boom shakalaka. Emmett Brown says, speaking to the 50-50 jumpers with DK, the funny thing with Russ is he's never been too good at throwing jumpers inside the 10. Russ is way better at throwing 50-50 balls from 45 yards away.
That's
facts.
Yeah, facts. Yeah. He's seeing what I see.
Cameron says, laughing out loud, I had a funny story all the way up to 7th grade. I had a noodle arm quarterback. So in 8th grade, when I went to football camp with high school quarterbacks, I had the ball go right through my hands and hit me in the face. It's true, man. It's different velocity, different speed. Those balls are coming at that point, man. It's a whole different game. Dmack, the Rams game is going to be such a must win, says Nas. You believe that's what's going to decide the West?
Yes.
I agree. I think this is going to be that game. Everything's going to be riding, not only the West. I think that game is also going to be what's going to be riding for us to potentially get that first round bye and home field advantage throughout the playoffs. The number one seed is everything. So that's what my board says, DMAC. I know you can't read it. It's all about the number one seed.
Yeah, so, man. I'll be so happy to beat the Rams the second time around, man. I'll be ecstatic. I'm just a realist. I'm never too high. I'm never too low. I'm kind of right there in the middle with things. And I just see things for face value and what I see on the field. And like I said, I'll be ecstatic if we win. Like I said, I'm rooting I know that's the key. That's the key to us either going deep in the playoffs or not. Like, that is the game. That's the key. And like I said, I'm going to be glued to that TV screen on that game because that's the only one that I'm circling from here on out.
That's going to be a stressful week leading up to it too. I'm going to be pacing and just thinking how do we get around this McVay stuff? He's going to run his offense and stuff. And you do hope the thing you can take at least a nicety from it. They got you in the first half. In the second half, you seem to make some adjustments and you completely shut them down, that Rams game in the second half on the road. If you can replicate that and tap back into that, maybe you found a formula there for dealing with his offense a little bit. Maybe that gives us a little glint of hope. But I agree with you. It's a tough matchup, and he's the Carroll beater, McVay or whatever his name is. So we'll see how it goes.
Rana says, I think the Seahawks are going to have a decisive, comfortable victory at 17, and then the Eagles at 9.
Wow, low-scoring game from Irina. I love the prediction on the low-scoring game. That's an interesting little prediction. If it's raining like it is, DMAC, it could turn into that type of affair where nobody's able to move the ball and it's just a lot of punting.
It could be the Mud Bowl, baby, the Mud Bowl.
My boat. Emma Brown, you guys were right about not putting too much into Carson's re-signing. Carson, Hyde, and even Mike Davis. Those guys fit our style and make sense. You know who doesn't? Penny. What the F did we draft him? We drafted Penny because Penny looked to Coach Carroll, and this goes back to our talk on the Rams, actually. This bends back into what we're talking about the Rams. So Rams were beating up on Coach Carroll and our Hawks for a couple-year period, and it was getting into Coach Carroll's head. And he's watching Todd Gurley be able to be at the size he was, but yet still combo that size with that speed and glide kind of ability to get to the edge of his defense quickly, faster than his defenders could react, challenging his team's speed on the defensive side of the football. So he looked at Rashad Penny and he thought, okay, it's not Gurley. It's not a top 10 running back, but it's a first-round running back that's got a similar kind of stylings to what Gurley had. Then they went out and drafted him, and they proceeded really not to utilize him in the correct way or utilize him how I'd utilize him. He's not really a fit here for what we do, but he still is, to me, I'm above DMAC and where I hold him as far as a talent level. I think he's still a very talented running back. They just have to use him on the outside appropriately, Emmett. When you look at the key stats from last year that I go back to time and time again, that are this is the absolute key with Rashad Penny. The absolute key. He is not Chris Carson. You do not jam him into the middle and inside zone runs all day off of read option. That doesn't utilize him correctly. He's an outside guy. So last year on carries, on outside pitches to the outside, he had an 8.2 yard per average carry. Let me say that again. 8.2 yards per carry on outside runs last year. That's pretty good, isn't it, DMAC? 8 yards a carry. He was also 7 yards a carry on runs outside the tackle. So what you'd have is the difference essentially on pitch plays, those kind of out plays to the edges. He's 7.2. Then he's at about it's 7, straight 7 when he's just going outside the tackle on those outside zone runs. Let's say on the going at essentially the Todd Gurley type plays that he'd run with the Rams for years. The Todd Gurley type player. Why you drafted him. So those people that, and I get where you're coming from him, it's not like him, and there's a lot of people who don't like Rashad Penny, and I get it, but just utilize him the right way. Utilize him on those outside runs and watch him flourish. Watch him take off. Watch him bust off 40, 50-yard runs. Watch him challenge team defenses like Todd Gurley used to challenge our team defense. That's right. What you'll see.
And Brandon's definitely, he's more, he likes the analytics side. I'm more so like, so what I can kind of compare it to is Arizona with Drake, and then you've got Edmonds. Edmonds looks fantastic as a secondary back, But when he's the number one guy, he's not going to average those yards that he averages as a second running back. And so for me, the reason why I'm so down on Penny is because I know what, being a secondary back, it's a privilege. Like you'll always have better stats than the number one guy because it's just inevitable. When you saw Drake go down and you saw Edmonds actually start, he had a horrible game. Like he didn't average nearly as much as what he averaged as a second string back because one, you're fresh. You coming off the sideline, you haven't blocked anybody, you haven't hit anybody, you're fresh coming off the sideline, you got way more endurance and you know what I mean? So it's the numbers kind of lie. I mean, I know men lie, the numbers don't lie, but it's just, to me, it's kind of a little deceiving when you look at just the numbers when it comes to Penny on those yardage stats. So, but like I said, I was always just a naysayer when it came to Penny. I know you're high on Penny. I always know that a number two guy is always going to get those higher numbers than the number one guy.
And I may arrive at the point of realizing, okay, he's not an upper level running back in this league, or he's not as talented as I thought he was. But in looking at those stats, it's when I look at a guy for his career that's averaging 5 yards a carry, just bar none. And yeah, it's being done in the backup role, but I think the one time he started, he actually had a really good game against the Rams and ran for a good amount of yards in that one game that you had him in there. I'm still at a point where I can't come to a finalized conclusion on him per se because we don't have enough, like we've talked about, not enough data. You just haven't given enough opportunity with the carries to go. And then last year he got injured as he was really just starting to roll and get cooking. So we'll see if he's where he's at. But I think if they utilized him right, there's an opening there for you to have an effective piece to your offense that you don't have right now. Chris Carson can't get to the edges. Carlos Hyde can't get to the edges. Travis Homer definitely can't get to the edges. And DJ Dallas can't even hope to sniff the edges unless it's some top sweep where he's got two pulling guards heading out in front of him, right, and a tackle out on the edge. Then, yeah, he can get to the edge at that point. Penny's a guy that can truly get to that edge and challenge team defenses in a way that you don't have on the roster right now. And you can use.
Penny definitely is a change of pace back. I actually like the fit here. Like when he was actually going and they were actually utilizing him, giving him a lot of touches. Because he's a change of pace back and he's a lot more patient than Carson. And he also has better vision.
Yes.
So, like, there's a lot of things that I do like about Penny. Don't get me wrong. I'm not just hating on Penny just for no reason. Like, there's a lot of good things that I like about Penny. But when we talk about it from just a statistical analytic standpoint, I don't really believe in those numbers.
I agree with you. He's not going to be – he wouldn't be an 8-yard carry guy. Wouldn't he? That outside run stuff, I agree. It comes completely from – he's not getting as many carries as the number one guy in key moments like the number one guy would when the defense is keying on him. That stuff's completely valid. So he would not be up at this. If he's full-time, he had 8 yards a carry on outside runs or 7 yards a carry on outside tackle runs. But it'd be, right, I think he could push 5 yards to carry on.
But for runs. What it's worth, I mean, he's here to carry out a specific role, and that's his role. I mean, can you blame the guy? That's just his role in the offense is to come in on second, third down and be a change of pace back and do his job, pick up the first down and get us rolling. So if we can get that back and add that to our offense, it's only going to be a plus.
Yep. Fun fact about Penny, I almost had a game where he had almost 900 all-purpose yards at San Diego State. Imagine having 900 yards in a game in college. Like, oh my gosh, I'd be feeling myself. Team is on my back. But we'll see with him. We'll see what he does. It's going to be one of more. Him and Taylor are the two guys when they're coming back. Very interesting to see what they're going to give you. Is he 100% off that ACL? Is Taylor going to be big enough? Is he going to be ready to roll to give you any kind of production as a pass rusher? Because two things that we could use on this team, two elements those guys provide that we could use, it would have a place.
Boom Shock says Penny should have gone to the Saints. He would have been Kamara-like. I think we touched on that a little bit. Avery saying, personally think Carlos Dunlap made our pass rush come to shine with Jamal Adams. Definitely agree with that.
You can't argue with the results of what you've seen recently, and you've gone up against some okay offensive lines. Not even got anything putrid, I don't think. But he's definitely changed. Things are changing up there. I mean, whether it's his addition, whether it's Rasheem Green coming in, giving the rotation more, lengthening out the snaps, Snacks coming in, lengthening out those snaps. You're asking guys to play 90% of the snaps on the defensive side of the ball. We asked no player on our defensive line during the Super Bowl years of 2013, 2014 to come anywhere near 90% of the snaps on the defensive line. Nobody. So it's you really challenge a player to have him. You're going to gas him out. He's going to look ineffective at times. He's going to have to take plays off. I don't care what anybody says. I'm a defensive tackle, been slamming for And they're walking us up the field time and time again. I'm gonna get gassed. I'm not gonna necessarily leave the game, but I'm gonna hold on for dear life and do my best. But again, less effective from that. So we'll see. We'll see. But I think we're in the step in the right direction, Avery. Definitely in a step in the right direction. And we're seeing those markers we need to see where this unit's not going to come together overnight. It is those incremental steps to get them to a point of being, wow, we've actually got a decent unit here. Oh, Darrell Taylor gives us 20 snaps. Rasheem's coming back into the fold next. Oh, Jaren's way more better now that he's on 70% of the snaps, 65%, definitely we could see that, but it's going to be step by step. And they've got some weak Nellies now to beat up and get themselves right like that. They could just totally beat up on these weak teams that look crazy good versus what they look like early on in the year, going forward now. So I know the Giants don't have the greatest offensive line. Jets don't have the greatest offensive line. Washington does not have a good offensive line, as evidenced, by the fact that, it's all right, but no, they lost Trent Williams. So I don't know. I think you're going to be able to chance to let them go out there and hunt, put some stats up for whatever that's worth. And boom shakalaka, I don't know about Penny being Kamara. Do you, Dmack? That doesn't.
No.
Kamara is a different back. He's one of the more talented. He's to me a top 5 back in this league. Alvin Kamara. Sherman says DK is an elite blocking receiver people don't talk about enough. This was what Dmack was talking about as well, with him chasing down that play at the end and the effort that he gives. When you're looking at a wide receiver, it's very easy to get characterized into a couple of things. How does he run? Does he run said routes? Can he catch? And you go, okay, well, he does those things. That's good. There's a lot of other things you ask a wide receiver to do. There's a lot of other things a wide receiver has to do. So picking and plucking one little thing like that is maybe ignoring some of the other things that you should probably really be the plumage you should be getting caught up in,
The fact that, like I said, to have a wide receiver to even want to block, let alone actually do it effectively, like, it's just amazing. Like, that's such a huge thing for an offense to have as a weapon.
You play with a lot of soft. Did you see a lot of soft receivers in your time that you were like, damn,
yes,
soft.
all the time, man. I was never ever worried about a wide receiver blocking me or I couldn't get through. Like, come on, man. It was very seldom that you go up against a big wide receiver or a physical wide receiver that they're willing and wanting to block and get physical. So just to even have this guy as a presence out there to just want to get down and dirty and block and put his nose down and just do all the small things. That's where I think a lot of people don't understand. Like, these Super Bowl teams, these teams that go deep off in the playoffs, these teams aren't getting there because they're just, oh yeah, we got one guy that's got the best hands. No, they're doing all the little things that you don't see on the stat line on a day-to-day. They're doing so many things from all the little things. When they go in practice and coaches and they're going over, game scripts and stuff, they're not talking about how elite you can catch in all your hands and all this other stuff. They want to know, are you willing to do the little things? Are you willing to get in the trenches and put your neck and your nose in those hard, grindy running plays and things like that? So, like, that's one thing that, like, I just want the chat to know, like, there's so much more to these players, and that we gotta start to, like, put a little bit more respect on all their names. Like, I even though I might be down on a player or this, that, and the third, we gotta definitely put more respect on these guys. These guys are the 1% of the population that are doing it at the highest level, and they do a lot of great things on that football field, and to their credit.
Absolutely. I couldn't say it better myself, man. And again, with a guy like this, just that what he is as a player and what he's going to be, it's hard because you want to compare everything, and that's natural. There's times you just got to look at the one-offs on guys and go, this guy's just this is different dude, just a different dude.
And like, the funny thing is, like, if I paid you $5 million a year, and you knew guaranteed, as long as you show up in your jersey, that you're getting paid, that check is going to be in that account, do you think you're going to be motivated to go out there and block a linebacker and stick your nose out in there? Like, no, you don't care about going out there and blocking. You getting a paycheck regardless. Yeah. Do you understand this? These guys are paid. These guys are like, it's getting to the point where, like, these NFL and basketball players, these guys are getting paid at such a high level that it's almost like, kind of like, what other millionaires that are putting their self at risk, like, on a day-to-day at their job, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're going to want to, with a smile on their face, do it. Like, it's so crazy. Like, when you really think about it, when you think about what these guys are asked to do and what they're, having to do knowing that their future, every play is on the line. Look at it. Look at these quarterbacks that's going down every week. That's, Joe Burrows of the world and all these guys, man, they putting their lives on the line every play, bro. Getting paid.
So look at Alex Smith, man. 37 surgeries on that leg after that broken leg. Like, that's, I mean, and then he comes back and plays. How much money does this guy collect? Number 1 overall pick back when they were paying number 1 overall picks. And he's a couple contract with the Chiefs, contract with the Redskins, and getting released, got his bait. Like, he's collected probably over 100 and some million. Yeah, he comes back, all those surgery, and gets back out on that field and says, all right, let's go. Let's roll. Like, it's a love of the sport at that point. It's truly it's beyond just, because I'm with you. Like, you pay me millions of dollars, like, my work ethic will probably dial back, just being real about it. Like, I am not probably as hungry 5 million deep in my account than I am at said current moment. That's just natural.
And that's what's so crazy. You got guys that's just normal, average, like me, like blue collar citizens. That's, you paying me X amount of dollars just to do 8 hours a day, and I'm gonna take as many shortcuts as I can. And this guy, like, you understand, like, so at your job, what you're doing right now, if you were getting paid millions, you'd be mopping up and cleaning up that whole place, staying extra, like all types of stuff.
Oh, for sure.
So these players, they really don't have to go the extra mile, and so when they do, you just got to respect it even more.
And then take note of it, because it's a part of what can cause them to separate themselves from the pack, help them to separate themselves.
And that separates the men from the mice. And that's the true great teams that actually, when these guys talk about, going to war with each other and having each other's backs every game. And when you see these guys when your quarterback is getting hit illegally and you see these guys going after, like, that's what it is. Like, it's that serious. It's life and death out there. Like, and these guys ain't having that. Like, bro, that's my quarterback. That's my livelihood right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I mean,
it reflects on me if we lose.
It's crazy though. Just take a second and think about that. It's really deep when you think about it.
Oh, it is. And it's why when we saw DK, you mentioned it instantly when you saw with him, and I noticed it as well, is that the work ethic. Oh, he's got that body, he's got all the stuff. Yeah, the flash stuff, but the work ethic thing, the thing they keep talking about, the thing that keeps being mentioned. That's the thing that'll separate him. And that's the thing that when he's chasing down a guy 80 yards down the football field, that's reflective of that. High work ethic guys would make that kind of play. Lazy guys wouldn't. And I know we've got a comment here with Emmett where Emmett says he thinks that DK has got some diva tendencies. I just can't say I agree. I don't agree. I don't see it with him. He's got colorful stuff and the binky and all that stuff. But when you watch him on the field, he plays like a dog. He's one of the bigger dogs at wide receivers that we've seen here, maybe aside from Doug Baldwin. Man. I mean, it's
if he's a diva, then like I said, Stephon Diggs is just.
What does that make Diggs? What does that make Beckham if he's a diva?
Yeah, man. If I just don't know, man.
Like, what are they? I mean, at that point, like, they're,
Wow, these guys give up every single play that the ball ain't going their way. Like, that to me is a true diva. Like,
Yappy McCappy says, underestimate no team. We aren't either. No underestimation.
Hey, no underestimation, but film no lie. So
film no lie. And at this point, you're right. At this time of year, the thing with it is you get a lot of these teams that start to, as they're out of the playoff hunt, they start to, okay, well, this guy could come back from an injury, but why play him? What are we playing him for? Just put him on the IR for the year. This guy go back, IR him, have him sit. They'll protect guys then for the next year at that point. They'll get into that mentality really quickly as you get down to the last 4, 5, 6 games of the season. So I wouldn't be surprised, like the Niner game, for instance, that is the case, where there's guys who maybe could come back and play, but they just say, rest him out this game. We're not playing for anything, so just let it roll. Thank you, Ted Brogan, for the $5 donation. Ted, you're always coming in with those donos, man. Thank you so much. Salute you, sir. He says, I hate the Rams. Aren't the Hawks 1-6 versus McVay-led Rams? Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Happy Thanksgiving to you too, Ted, and thank you for that donation. And yep, McVay's he's owned the guys. I think it's 1-5, something like that. I think it's 1-5. But it's all the more same. He's dominated the matchup. And even, you look last year, even it's not that we haven't had a lot of good recent evidence to go, well, we're turning this around outside of that second half where you started to kind of flip things. But offensively, they're tough for us offensively. Russell this year at times versus number 1 cornerbacks. Patrick Peterson game in Arizona, the game against Ramsey at the Rams will sometimes not go there. You just won't attack that place. Well, now you're talking about cutting down a lot of the football field. And then you got the front four of the Rams that can generate pressure. you start leading yourself into situations where, oh, Russell's under pressure, can't find somebody open, he gets sacked. And it looks like a coverage sack. Well, he's not even looking at one of his reads necessarily. This is why we come back to Dmack saying that they're such a tough matchup.
Yeah.
But is what it is. It's going to come down to that game, probably, Ted. That game's going to make everything's going to be right on that game. Cameron Hughes says, so when he was not yelling at Russ for not getting the ball, yeah, I don't think some of the chat's seeing some Dima stuff on stuff I'm not seeing. I think DK had a right to go to Russ in that Cardinal game and say, why aren't you throwing me the football? There were times that they showed overhead shots of him breaking free and running open when Patrick Peterson wasn't even guarding him and Russ wasn't even looking over at him. I've got no problem with a receiver saying, hey, we're offense is struggling. You're not getting me a single touch in this football game. What's going on, man? And the question was valid to be asked, I think, in that moment. I don't think that makes him a diva. Do you, T-Mac? I mean, I want the receiver on team to be going, hey, that's different from the receiver saying, you've only got me 4 catches so far this game. What's going on, man? Come on, more touches. Versus the offense ain't working. We're not doing well. Russ is lost. He needs help. Throw your best offensive target, maybe the ball then.
Right.
Right.
So Cappy says all games are important.
They are all important.
That's true. And Boom Shakalaka is saying it's all changed when DK got national attention. So he's basically saying he kind of switched it up.
We'll see, folks. We'll see on this one if it's truly a diva coming out. I would tend to lean in a different direction on this one, where I think he's going to continue to be what he's been on this ascent of a guy that when it's all said and done, we're going to look at a 5-6 game stretch here, 5-6 year stretch here, where he averages 80 catches a season and 1,500, 1,600 yards and 15, 16 touchdowns a year. If we walk away after that 5 year stretch looking at that and he's a diva at that point, then so be it. I'll take that production for the diva-ism that we get all day long for that, if that's what we're looking at. Would you? I mean, if he's going to have it, like, I'm like, okay, like we have a locker room last year, Boy Scouts. We didn't get anywhere. You got to have, there's going to be a few guys you have from a personal standpoint, though I'm not ready to buy in on this D-Mac. I am not ready to buy in on this DK's a diva thing at all. I just don't see enough. Taking a couple moments from the season here over a 2 year stretch of his career and saying, well, there's this moment and then there's this moment you could kind of look at if you squint your eyes. I don't think that that's an interpretation we could lean towards yet.
Yeah.
Boom Shakalaka, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Boom Shakalaka says the Eagles game is an ultimate trap game. Wentz Peterson back against the wall. You think this is a trap game? I think prime time doesn't. I think that's the part that removes the trap aspect of it for me, Boom. It's the prime time aspect of this game. You're on Monday night, prime time. Carroll and Wilson show up for those games. So
Bash says Danny Dimes is his second favorite quarterback after Russ.
Danny Dimes. I love that nickname. Such an awesome nickname. He's playing pretty good this year, isn't he?
Yeah.
Kid from the Giants. He's doing all right.
Yeah.
He's coming along. Jonathan Salazar says, D-Mac, you think that our defense can only be beat with trickery? Most teams have done to beat us has been throw the ball at our secondary, can't cover anyone.
Yeah, so maybe a lack of verbiage of what I said, not trickery. It's just, like I said, something with a complex offensive scheme where formationally we don't know, we can't cue on what they're doing or what we see. Usually when you have an offense that isn't too dynamic, whatever they line up in, you got a defense knows they have about 2 or 3 plays that they run out of that fit. And so when I say trickery, I mean like just a more elaborate playbook to where it's like, we don't know what we're getting out of this. I mean, you can scheme, you can go over all of it and practice. And that's basically what they do. When you scheme for a team, the offensive and defensive coordinators, all they do is mimic and tell the defense, hey, if they line up in this, you're going to get this, 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 and this. Now, when McVay lines up in something, especially when he's throwing different things at you each week, I feel like McVay, he switches his stuff up week to week. You don't even know what you're going to get from him from a week to week standpoint, because he's always proactively switching his stuff up. And so when you scheme for a team like that, it's tough, because you watch the film, you go, okay, we got it. They're going to run this, and this out of this formation. Then when all said and done, when you go to play them, the trickery is the fact that everything that you just studied for, it's kind of like having a cheat sheet for a test. And then you go to the test and the test is all scrambled around and it is not in order that
questions.
You thought. Exactly. And that's what it is. And so when you study for it, you're thrown off because that's all you studied for. So now it's a whole different test and you're going to fail it because all you did was study for that week is that type of standardized test. It's a whole nother test now.
Yeah. I agree. It's again too, it's trickery and a difference. I think he's using trickery. Normally we'd use trickery in the respective flea flickers, or they're running a lot of fly sweep to then another fly sweep coming in. But this is the trickery of what Dmack's talking to. They come out in that same formation. I mentioned the trip set look. They'll show you the same formation over and over again throughout a game. And they're running all different plays off of it every time. It's never the same thing. And you can never pre-snap read or diagnose what's happening. It's almost always having to wait to post-snap to know for certain where the ball is really going, which makes you a half step late in your read and reaction and removes a part of the vital part of this defense, which is to be able to read and react. That's why our play scheme is so simple. And so it just attacks. This comes back to him attacking our defensive scheme, him being there to attack it. And that's what's in that attack is his flexibility of his scheme to go at it in the way that he sees fit and be on the fly to change it.
Yeah, appreciation though, Jonathan. Challenge me every week, bro. I love it.
Emmett Brown says, I'll take Jake Matthews off Atlanta's hands. Trade that second. Why even save picks anyway? I would do that all day long, Emmett. All day long. I'd take Jake Matthews for a second round pick if you could do it. Shoot, I might, I think that's just the type of move I'm talking about, Emmett. Little guy, maybe just a little bit older, not ancient, but we're seeing some of these tackles playing into now their mid-30s for whatever reason. I can't make sense of it, Dmack, how these left tackles throughout the league. Whitworth played to like he's 38, 39, then he got this injury this year. Brown's 35 years old. There's a couple guys in the league there. Peters with Eagles is playing left tackle, not playing great, but he's 39, I think, right now playing left tackle for them. So maybe not 39, but he's old as hell. But they're doing it. So I'd love to look that way. I think you can get a little depressed value versus you look at that trade the Texans made with the Dolphins, giving up 2 first-round picks, and then they paid Tunsil $25 million a year after the trade. I wouldn't want to do something like that.
I don't know. I'll be back.
All right. What's up, D-Boy? D-Boy says, any update with Posick? Yep, he's going to be back this week, last I heard, unless something's changed from what I heard this morning. B-Russ says, if Penny shows out the rest of the season and is as good as he was right before his injury, do we turn to him as our number 1 back next year? I know his style is different than what Pete usually prefers. I would guess that it would probably be a competition situation where competition would rule the day on that one, B-Russ, where people would say, hey, it's open competition. We don't have a certain starter, whoever wins in camp. And I think Penny would win in camp at that point. It'd be very interesting to see him as a starter week in and week out and what that would look like because he is such a different mold of a running back than what we've had prior. As far as just seeing him at 20 carries a game, 15 to 20 carries a game. But there's a very easy way they could do that. They've got a couple of years more of club control over him. It could happen. Could happen. And happy Thanksgiving, D-Boy. And I think Shaquille's coming back too, as well. Cameron says, I like Scarborough. He was on our practice squad a couple of years ago. That injury was brutal. It was a brutal injury. That thing popped bad. You could just see the way his legs opened up and splayed. It was like, ooh, poor guy. He was running good in that game too. Emmett says, do you think Carroll's son being in charge of the running game coordinating, he has something to do with the running back injuries, bad practice habits? I don't know if it's that as much as Emmett. I would think it would be more just that you run this kind of brutal inside zone running scheme. So much of what you're wanting to do is to go between the tackles and hammer it up in the middle. And that's just going to wear down a lot of backs because they're taking a lot of shots from places they can't see it. I think you go up the A gap over the top of the center, you could be getting hit by the defensive end. You could be getting hit by a defensive tackle. You could have a linebacker coming down the hole to meet you. You're kind of having your head on the swivel always to see where you're getting hit. And there's a lot of extra people to come in and hit you after you've been initially tackled. I just think that's going to probably wear down running backs over time. Certainly wasn't the case with Penny because he caught an outside throw and he just had a freakish knee thing pop on that one. But it's a possibility. I certainly don't like nepotism or Carroll hiring his son to be a coordinator on the team. I don't think that that's earned, and I don't think it's right that you're doing that. I'm not a fan of coaches doing that at all. Cameron Hughes says, fire Ivan the Terrible. That's who I would probably point it to him. And if I had to point to anybody, it would be Ivan the Terrible as far as reason for running back injuries. And we just saw Stephen Sullivan, it was announced, had a sports hernia injury that he's having resolved now. He'll be going on the IR for the year. How many players over the last 2 years have we had sports hernias? Nick Fleur, Jadeveon Clowney, Doug Baldwin. There's a long list of guys that have sports hernias. Doesn't that point to training, especially being a soft tissue injury? I would really love it if one of the Seahawks reporters would do some in-depth reporting about the injury situation, especially since Ivan the Terrible's taken over, especially since his past history at other programs like USC and University of Washington, because this is a situation that's fast going to need to be solved one way or another. We are now the second most injured team in the NFL behind the 49ers, who everybody looks through the lens of being decimated this year as far as their injury situation goes. Ours is almost as bad as theirs. It's time for us to address that in this offseason. Back-to-back seasons being the most injured team is not a fluke. That's enough data to go, okay, let's do something else. TJ says, when we get the ball first, we are great on offense. Have been pretty good when we get the ball first. Faded says, what do you think it takes for us to get to the Super Bowl and win? Faded, the defense needs to come together and make sure they can get a pass rush with the front four. If they do that, the defense will be in good enough shape to go out there and win football games. And it's really as simple and easy as that for me, Faded. This has been on my front burner since last offseason. We've got to fix the defensive line. We've got to be able to rush the passer. You've got to be able to generate that pass rush without having to blitz. And you do that by having the front four generate pass rush. If they can do that by playoff time, you could go on a Super Bowl winning run. Because then you could drop a lot of zone coverage. You can fit back into the natural foundation of how your defense is supposed to operate. And that would lead to success. Cameron says, Flowers over Reed. I don't like short corners on the outside. Damn, Pete's brainwashing me with his tendencies, laughing out loud. You are now being brought into the fold, Cameron, and you've accepted short cornerbacks for the week. But I agree with you. Maxwell says, what running back should we pay? I think you go out and find another guy like a Carlos Hyde type / even re-signing Carlos Hyde. 1 year, $4 million deal. That's as much as I want to spend on running backs right now. OCC 2.0, better late than never, my guy. Thanks for hopping in the chat. Anderson says, I feel like I'm in the minority when I say I actually didn't mind our run pass balance against the Cardinals last Thursday. There was never a moment where I felt like we ran too much. I just like winning. Solid point, Anderson, and I can't argue with the results of what we saw from it. I think what it comes down to for a lot of people, and the bottom line of this off the other side of it, is that if you're going to have a quarterback you're paying $35 million a year, then you should be utilizing that quarterback thusly. If you're going to have that quarterback throw 25 to 30 times a game, then maybe you just need to bring in a game manager at that point and allot those resources to other places on the football team to beef those points up better. I would lean in that direction if this is what you want to do as a football team from Seattle's standpoint. But it's not to, I wouldn't want anything to happen with Russ, of course. I want Russ here forever, but this is my argument kind of on a bottom line thing with this Anderson. With me, Anderson too, again, it's me letting Russ cook. I was never with one of those people in the crowd of let Russ cook to say, let him throw 40 to 45 times a game. I just wanted you to bend off that 27 attempts a game and twist that knob up a little bit into like 35 attempts a game. 30, 35, 37 attempts, somewhere in that range, not too many, just flip it from 53% running the ball to 53% passing the ball. That's what I would love to see. And that's not full on let Russ cook over an open flame, just a little simmering, a little sauteing, if you will. Chris Miner, thank you so much. Much respect to you and love you too, man. Salute. Robert, how you doing, Robert? Constant pressure is the only way to disrupt McVay's offense. Hopefully Dunlap and the rest of the pass rush can disrupt Goff. And they were able to do a lot better job of that in the second half of the game, Robert, against the Rams. So that was a good indicator that maybe they can do that. The other thing that's going to help that, Rob, is that Andre Whitworth's gone for the season. So that guy who's played maybe the league best left tackle play for going on the last couple of years since he come over from Cincinnati is gone for the season. Their best offensive lineman is out. I've got to feel like that's going to come into play at some point or another with this Rams team. And Dmack will be back, Emmett. I'll make sure that he gets your question on the Arnett. I'm going to guess that he might mention a little bit of some of that has to do with that thumb thing that he's fighting through. little behind the chat here. We'll get you up here. Cameron says, I wanted Arnett and Terrell in the second round. I did not expect them to go in the first. Yeah, Terrell got pulled, Cameron, because the Falcons needed a cornerback, and they knew there were no other zone corners in this draft, and that was their only shot to get an upper level one, and they had to go high to do it. That was really a little bit of a reach by the Falcons on that one. And Arnett went a little higher than I thought too, with both me and Dmack. And that's one thing you'll probably mention too, Emmett, on Arnett, is that we didn't expect either him or Terrell. We were both high in them as players, but we didn't expect either of those two guys to go as high as they did in the last draft, which I think they were a little bit reached for because of the type of players they were. Seahawks Rain, exactly. Get him in open space, and Penny be great. Glad you agree, Seahawks Rain. I think he would be great in open space. That's where he operates at his best. Emmett says, you both being passionate about Penny being used wrong by the staff. It's things like that that give me little to no faith in the staff. We don't maximize our players, especially on offense. Yeah, Emmett, it's a valid criticism, frankly. Look at how long it took them to figure out what to do with Jimmy Graham and where the best way to utilize him. It was a couple of years. They get sometimes to be a little bit of slow learners. Look at Posick, Emmett. Posick comes into this league to me as a natural center in this league. You should slap him into center from day one. Probably would be an upgrade from Britt day one, but they had paid Britt that money off of his one good year the year prior. So they try to rotate him out into guard. A center does not make a guard. A guard does not necessarily make it the center. Guys can do okay in those positions. They're similar positions, but they're asking two different things. So now they finally slam Posick in there. And to me, Posick was playing better than what we'd seen out of Britt over the last few years. Well, why not just naturally put him in the position he naturally plays at? That's where, to me, there's some valid criticism in attacking the coaching staff, saying, are you getting the most out of your players? Are you putting your players in always the right position to succeed at that point? Well, not always when that's the case, and not when it concerns Penny, and not when it concerns Posick. Seahawks Ray, and people hating on Penny now, laughing out loud. Why? He's productive in our second best running back. He just got I think Seahawks Rain, he's got a little bit of he's not a chubby guy, but he's got a little bit of the soft looking body at times. He doesn't have that hard style that people are used to from seeing with guys like Thomas Rawls, Marshawn Lynch, Chris Carson. He's a different kind of back. He's more of a vision, run to daylight kind of guy. So I think it's just harder for folks to look at him through that same lens, but you won't see me there. I'm still high on him. TJ says our offseason we absolutely need to re-sign Posick and Griffin or franchise tag him and get O-line left side, mostly get a different D-line and one corner. That's all. Yeah, I agree, TJ. We don't have a lot of work we got to go out there and do this offseason. There's going to be some positions. I mean, this is a good offseason to not necessarily have a ton of draft capital or a ton of cap space, because you can see how certain stuff slots out pretty well. I mean, you're going to be already like 3 or 4 deep at safety with what you're getting back there. You got a couple of slots. Yeah, you have to address the outside corner position, but you still bring back Flowers, linebackers deep. Yeah, so you're in an okay spot with Posick. I'd like to see them resign him, but they could put the restricted tag on him. TJ, that's another option with him, because you could put the second round tender on him, and then that give you an opportunity to match if anybody signed him to a contract, and then you get another second round pick back. So there's a couple of things you could do with Posick as far as a strategy point. With Griffin, I cannot put the franchise tag on Shaquille Griffin. No way, shape, form. Nope, just can't do it. Couldn't do it. No way, no how. That's too much money to be spending on him. If Penny and Carson didn't get hurt last year, the offense could have been dangerous. Agreed, Cameron. Agreed that losing those two guys at running back and then the fall off we had was really hurt. Also, the offensive line and the injuries that stacked up there were problematic too. You lost your guard with Fluker, I think, at one point there. Your center was out. Your left guard was out. Dwayne Brown was playing through like 2 or 3 injuries last year, bicep, knee. So I think that had a bit to do with it as well. Nas says, I truly believe if we weren't injured last year, we would have won the Super Bowl. I might be adept to agree with you, Nas. I mean, we gave the Packers all they could take. We were a tough matchup for the Niners the next week if we got by the Packers, and that was with a team decimated by injuries. I mean, just absolutely decimated by injuries. So if we're 50% healthier, I agree. Why wouldn't you think that this guy was the limit on the season last year if that was the case? You were the most injured team in the NFL, bar none, last year, and it was by a mile last I checked last season. TJ says, how can we how can we, the subs, get on to talk to you? I'm working on something with that. I've been a little slow with the TJ because I got a lot cooking right now. I'm trying to wrap up this next great Seahawks moment video I'm working on. So I'm just pounding out, just trying to get through the last things I need to do. I think you guys are going to like this one. I got another, another decent, great Seahawks moment one on the way for you folks. So I'm putting that one together, but then once I get that wrapped up, my next thing is to look at doing a call-in type situation where we can have a phone number you guys can call into, and we can talk some Seahawks shop here on you guys, especially if we do a post-game stuff like that. So I'm working towards it, TJ, I promise. Eric99, how you doing, Eric? Emmett, hit the like button, fellas. Yes, please do as Emmett says there. Hit the like button if you are in the chat here. Helps the channel grow, helps me get found out on the algorithms. Thanks for mentioning that, Emmett. These guys are doing God's work here. Thank you guys for killing it on a Thanksgiving Eve. Thank you, Emmett. I appreciate it, man. And thanks for coming in with the cool, awesome questions, man. You make us think and have to turn this one over in our mind, not just easy answers off the top of our head. Seahawks Rain says, if we lose to any of these NFC least teams coming up, and he's got a freaked out face emoticon. Yeah, Seahawks Rain, you've got to beat these teams. The time of year this is, the amount of games you have left, what is at stake, that first round bye, knowing you really only have one legitimate team that's really tough on the schedule remaining, you have got to take care of business here. Super Bowl winning teams take care of these teams in this position. Go back to last year in the Kansas City Chiefs. And they're at the same point. I think they had the exact same record as we stand now, 7-3. Some of that was because, of course, they lost Mahomes for a couple games and he had dislocated kneecap. But when he came back, the back end of their schedule got really, really easy. The AFC West was not in a good place last season. And you usually are playing your division opponents to the last end of the schedule most of the time. So the Chiefs got healthy and they were able to feast on the famine, feast on those lesser opponents. And they got better and better. And the defense, which had been a problem throughout the year, suddenly slowly came together. Does this sound familiar? Does it sound familiar to you? And that's what we're going to look to replicate here. The exact same thing that we saw last season from them. Let's see if we can get the same thing this year for us. Eric 99's got Seattle 27-17. Not far off what I had, Seahawks, Eric 99. I had 25-17 myself. Seahawks Rain said they're sleeping on the Seahawks. I think they are sleeping on the Seahawks. Cameron Hughes, I love blocking as a wide receiver. I hate they've eliminated the blindside block. I do too a little bit, Cameron, and I blame Hines Ward for that. Hines Ward is the reason that there's no longer the blindside block in the NFL. It was such a beautiful thing to watch guys just get, and they used to get jacked up. Admittedly, we all remember Golden Tate coming back on Sean Lee of the Cowboys on a blindside block where he just depleted Sean Lee. I don't think Lee ever recovered from that hit. But it's a fun, exciting play to watch. It's brutal on the player, but I mean, it is fun. Yeah, Boom Shakalaka mentioned it. Hines Ward is, and Steve Smith used to do it a little bit too, but Ward would look to like break guys' jaws doing that. Like he was not just going with the purpose to hit him. He was looking to do damage. Curvin Driver, the Seahawks are the best team in the league. I love the sound of it, Curvin. Welcome on the chat. And I can't say I don't disagree with you. I agree with you completely. Curvin says, please respond out there. 3, who do you think is the best? Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, or Russell Wilson? Curvin, for my money, I'm going to still be a homer on this one and take Russell Wilson. I think Patrick Mahomes is better than Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is certainly ascending, but there's elements of Kyler Murray's game that still need to come along. And I wouldn't expect maybe some of those elements to really be coming along for another couple of years, much like the same kind of maturation process we saw with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's not the same quarterback right now that he was in year 2 or year 3. He's a better quarterback. He's improved along steadily. I expect the same thing for Kyler Murray, allowing for him to have a pretty high ceiling when we look down the road. With that said, though, Mahomes is firmly affixed behind Russell, if not 1A to Russell or 1B to Russell's 1A as far as the top quarterback in the sport. Chris Miner, what's the one thing the 12s and you guys are thankful for about the Seahawks so far? I'm thankful that we have control of our destiny, Chris. We have complete and utter control of our destiny. We don't need teams to lose, or if this team goes here and does that, and if that team goes here and does this. No. You win out. You will have that home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And as we learned through 2005, 2013, 2014, when you get that home field advantage throughout the playoffs, you're probably going to go to the Super Bowl. So I'm most thankful that we're in that pole position to be able to go out there and snag that. It's within our grasp. We have the easiest schedule remaining in the entire NFL. These things put a smile on my face and are going to make me just stuff that much more mashed potatoes and stuffing into my mouth tomorrow. I'm glad you agree, DK. So Shervins is on the DK is not a diva, and I agree. Shervin says every time DK had a good game and gets praised, he deflects that praise and gives teammates credit. Yeah, I just think I haven't seen those same, I agree with you, Shervins. I just don't see those same diva things. Caravan Driver says, I hope the Seahawks get second in the NFC West because they would have to play the Cardinals if they win. Well, I don't hope that, Curvin. I'm guessing you're a Cardinals fan. You know, hopefully Kyler Murray's shoulder is going to be okay, but I have a feeling Kyler's going to be kind of fighting through that shoulder injury a little bit as we move forward to a degree. But may end up still playing each other regardless, whether you guys win the division or not, because even if you go in the playoffs in the first round and, you know, go on the road and play the Eagles, well, you'll beat the Eagles. We'll be playing you in the second round then. So I have a little bit of an itchy feeling that maybe perhaps the Cardinals in Seattle could end up facing off again down the road. Cameron says, yeah, when your offense is slow and lethargic and your quarterback isn't looking at your side of the field when you're open, you should be mad. Yeah, everybody's got to be held accountable. And even Russ has got to be held accountable. He's not perfect. He doesn't walk on water, despite what we try to make everyone else believe from time to time. And that particular game, when you have an offense struggling and Patrick Peterson's lined up on DK, and Patrick Peterson is not Patrick Peterson of his prime. He's lesser than what he used to be. Still a good cornerback in this league, but not what he was. So you've got to attack him, especially when they're singling up DK Metcalf, who throughout the league has flourished against single coverage better than any wide receiver in the sport. When that's the case, it's understandable for my wide receiver to then expect that he has more than 2 targets when we get to the end of the game. That's then on the quarterback, and that's at the quarterback's fault. And that's not about being a diva at that point. That's about the quarterback understanding that he's being silly. He needs to attack this team correctly, appropriately. Ted Brogan, thank you again. Another $5 donation from Ted Brogan, folks. Double salute to you, my man. Thank you so much. Says, B. Russ, at what location have you seen the most beautiful island girls thus far? At the disco, beach, or just in town? It's just in town. The best thing coming from a guy who lives in Washington throughout my life, and all the girls putting on as much clothing as they absolutely possibly can put on. It's quite a nice flip to the other side of the coin when you see them putting on the least amount of clothes they can absolutely put on anywhere they're walking around. And, I try not to be the old leering weirdo, but there's a lot of candy here, a lot of eye candy here. That is for sure. And the beaches are pretty nice too. So everywhere around town would be my answer to you, Ted. It's there's no place you're looking where you're not seeing a beautiful lady out and about. They're friendly too here. That's the other thing. Is Washington girls sometimes get a little stiff upper lip and little. These girls are just light and low key. TJ, if we make the Super Bowl and it's against the Steelers, I automatically want new refs. What if they give us like the same repping crew or like a couple of the same refs from 2005 crew on the Steeler game? We'd go apocalyptic, wouldn't we? We'd go absolutely ape. We would. Yeah, the refs better not cost us that game if we play that game. I don't want any flags that whole game for the refs. They just put their whistles in their mouth and stay silent in the corner. Joey Mendez, he tore his hamstring. Bo Scarborough did. Yeah, I guess it wasn't his groin. It was his hamstring. Nathaniel, what's up, man? How you doing, Nathaniel? Emmett says, with tall and lengthy cornerbacks being on most teams' radar, especially in the draft, did you ever see Pete expanding his criteria for DB measurables? I don't, Emmett. The reason is you have to understand now why Seattle leans towards the longer cornerbacks in the first place. And I would probably argue that a lot of these teams in the league that have the taller cornerbacks now aren't having it for the same reasons. They're just getting the cornerbacks because Carroll started this trend and everybody goes, well, we just need one because we need one to match up against the big bodied wide receiver when we go against them. So it's a real rudimentary logic and reason behind why teams go out there and get the big cornerbacks now. Why Seattle does it has to do with the zone they play. So you've got a cornerback playing zone coverage a predominant amount of the time. You have him playing zone coverage with having basically the cover 3 look where he's protecting against that deep half of the field and protecting against the deep ball most of the time. That means he's going to be put in the position oftentimes of having a guy kept in front of him and he's got to drive on the ball. It's less asking the guy to flip his hips and stay with the guy and be sticky in coverage and more about his ability to then react when you need him to react. So then what is an extra benefit when you're having him do that? Let's take you to a real world example. You've got a 7-yard curl route. My cornerback's playing cover 3. His first responsibility is to that deep end of the field. The receiver runs that curl route. My corner now drives on the ball to try to break it up, right? You've got a cornerback who has an extra 2 inches of arm length now, and he's still running that same 4-4, 4-5 that the other cornerback is, who's the 5'11", 5'10" guy. He's got that much more space to go knock that ball away. And is it not said that the game is a game of inches? It can come down to this amount of space. So having the cornerback with a little bit of extra length is for that situation and bends back into why you play zone and how you play it. Cameron Hughes says, I hate Ivan. I hate Ivan the Terrible. This dude is a terrible trainer. Well, he certainly has failed upwards, hasn't he? He's failed upwards. That's one thing you can say about him. He's failed everywhere he's been, and everywhere he goes, he seems to keeps getting raises and elevations of where he is at as far as the industry goes for him. Nathaniel Park says, I don't know if you talked about it already, but do we pay $14.4 million for Dunlap next year? Is it 14.4, Nathaniel, or is it 10.5? And admittedly, I did not do the research on this to see what it's at. My opinion on this at this point is that I would absolutely at 10.5 million keep him if that's what it costs. If it's 14.5 million, we're talking, I probably still would, because by not locking in Dunlap at that point, you've locked in Dunlap, Rasheem Green, Darrell Taylor, Alton Robinson, and LJ Collier. That's 5 defensive ends now you have on your roster. You can go out there and get one more pass rusher for like 1 year, $5 million deal, let's say, and probably round out the unit relatively well at that point, if you even need to go get that last extra guy. So I would be okay with doing that versus maybe going on the market. Some of this, though, Nathaniel, is frankly going to be dictated by what happens on the market. You're going to see one of the strangest off seasons we've seen in quite a long period of time here this year. And what I mean by that is with that cap probably going down to 175 million, and you having so many teams already who are far over that cap moving into next year, there's going to be a gluttony of players out on the market who you're going to be able to then buy for pennies on the dollar, because nobody's got any cap space, but there's a lot of players. This is basic supply and demand market economics at play here. The supply is through the roof. The demand is low. It means you're not paying a lot for these players. So if Fletcher Cox gets released next offseason, and I can get Fletcher Cox at $10 million per year and cut away Carlos Dunlap to bring in Fletcher Cox, might be bringing in Fletcher Cox, right? So it's going to be a little bit, this is going to be dependent upon, Nathaniel, who gets cut and released for teams to clear that cap space for them to get their caps underneath into more comfortable places. But in general, I'm going to give you a general answer of yes as we get more data. Mindy says, please tell us, will they win? They will win this week, Mindy. It's going to be a close game a little bit. It's a little tighter than we would like. I'm going to go 25-17. Space says, who was the Seahawks' first kicker? I think his name was Efren Herrera. Efren Herrera. Herrera. Efren. Space says, how much turkey will you eat tomorrow? I'm going to go with 24 ounces of turkey for me tomorrow. Oh, it's Don Bitterlich. God, I was way off. Efren Herrera. Nathaniel Park says, bring back Britt to put him on the practice squad. Nathaniel, it's one of those things I don't know why they haven't done it so far already. That Fuller kid is not as good at what you get as Britt in there. I need me some Britt on the practice squad at this point. I don't want to run out there with Fuller in the playoffs if, God forbid, something happens to Posick. Slim God Mills, I liked what I've seen from Jordan Brooks. I think he has a lot of potential. I've got to eat some crow a little bit on this so far, Slim Dog, though we do need to see a little bit more game play from him. He's playing in the base, and then we're running into a lot of teams that are putting our Seahawks into nickel, which means he's not on the field as much. Frankly, I might almost be more in favor of flipping out KJ for Jordan at times, because KJ's sliding over from the Sam to the Will on third downs and passing downs. But the little that he has played, he's looked good. He looks really fast. He had one play, I don't think it was the Cardinal game. I think it was the Rams game where that somebody showed, Alistair Core on Twitter showed it, where he was playing the run initially at the snap, peels back around, comes in, and he's just a bullet out there and hits the receiver right as the ball arrives. A great play. That's been the most impressive part of me, that I knocked him from a scouting standpoint when we first got him, was his ability to play zone. I thought he'd be really lost in zone coverage at the NFL level because he was really lost in zone coverage at the college level. But he's actually been pretty decent in that respect. Cowboys game, he had a good play before he got injured in that in zone. This other game against the Rams, good play. So it's something that he can do. It's a part of his game, it seems like. And if he can develop that part of his game, he's such a thumper. He comes downhill. He can play the run so well. If he adds that to his element of his game, you've got a guy that could be a star at linebacker if he really is that night and day difference from what we saw of him at the college level. Space says Seattle Dunlap's the best thing that's happened to Seattle. Maybe the best thing that's happened to Seattle since DK Metcalf. Cameron Hughes says the next great Seahawk moment is on back-to-back video, back-to-back 50-point games, right? Cameron, the problem with the 50-point games is I can't find enough footage. So I've wanted to do the back-to-back 50-point game for my next great Seahawk moment video, but it's grainy footage that I have online to pick from. So when I go through and edit it and repost it back up, it's going to look really blocky and pixelated if I use that footage. So if you can find me, Cameron, some links to some actual good, and I've got a couple of cuts from the Bills game. I got the highlights in HD from those two games, but it'll be a real quick, great moment Seahawk video at that point. It'll be like 7 minutes long at that point if I can't get the actual hands on the game film from either of those two games. And that's what I've been looking to try to find, Cameron. So I haven't. No, we had a poll, Cameron, and the vote was to do the Seahawks Super Bowl game. So I'm going to be releasing out my next great Seahawks moment video is going to be the Seahawks Super Bowl win. I had to do it at some point or another, right? So that'll be the next one. What's up, Dmack? Welcome back in the Flux.
What's up?
Nathaniel Park says, if we finish 6-0, can we get the NFC West in the first round bye? I don't know if 13-3 can get us the number 1 seed. Yeah, it will. My reasoning behind this is that if you go 6-0, you don't have to worry about the Packers, Nathaniel. So the only team that you have to worry about at that point is the New Orleans Saints, and you just need to get one game better than them. If you look at the Saints' schedule, it's actually kind of tough. They got some tough games that they got to play, including the Kansas City Chiefs on their schedule. So I see the Chiefs, I see the Saints, especially having a backup quarterback in there for a couple games, probably losing a couple games here. And so that would vault us in if we went 6-0, in my opinion. Space asks, who was Jim Zorn's favorite receiver? It was Steve Largent. Hands down, not even close. Emmett Brown, I think we can all see the potential for greatness for this Hawks team. I think that's why I'm so quick to get frustrated with them. I was not blessed with the gift of sports patience.
Mm-hmm.
Nor should you. You shouldn't have patience. You're in Russell Wilson's prime. Teams don't
Especially not with this frustrating team.
Yeah, this is completely understandable. I mean, they should be a Super Bowl contending team every year. And when you're seeing a team play far off that mark, it should frustrate you. You should bang the table. You should be pissed off. They're underwhelming. They're playing below what their talent is at. Coach Carroll's coaching below what his talent coaching level is at. And then you got to call him on it, in my opinion. Don't try to just brush it up and wave pom-poms. Stand up and say, this is BS. Get more out of Russell Wilson's prime. Get more out of this team. Get more out of your draft process. So I think it's understandable. I mean, I share your impatience. I do. I mean, Dmack's way more patient than I am with this stuff.
Yes, I am.
Way more.
Rome wasn't built in a day. That's why.
Rome wasn't built in a day. All right. And we're going to move through here, just probably get through the last couple of these questions here and probably wrap this up. I mean, Dmack can go play some games and have some fun.
Hey, about that, drop your if you play Call of Duty, drop your gamer tag in the comment section.
Yeah, drop your channel if you're Call of Duty. We need some people for a bomb run. Do some bomb running. Ted Brogan says the visor is cool looking on football helmets. Has DK ever gone visor free in games? I think he has. He's got a couple games he's gone visor free. Mike Holmgren used to hate the visor on his receivers. He had Corn Robinson was in love with wearing this like purple one. He used to just drive Holmgren insane. He was certain that it caused drops. M. Webb says Rashad Penny was pretty good last year. I feel like we're sleeping on him. I'm not sleeping on him, man. There's one person that's in here stand up saying, I think this guy's still got some talent. He can be a capable player in this league. You're looking right at him right here, Mr. Webb. I think he absolutely can be that guy. Ted Brogan with another $5 donation. This is his third $5 donation, Dmack.
Appreciate it, Ted.
Thank you so much, Ted. I thank you so much. Now, Ted's got a great question here. He says, deep fried, oven, or smoked turkey for you fellas? And what's your all's number one choice?
Deep fried.
Deep fried. You just everything deep fried is going to be better. It is. You feel more guilty about it as soon as you eat it, but it tastes so good. It tastes so good. What does he mean by what's your all's number one choice? Oh, he's saying what of those three? Okay.
Oh,
I'd go deep fried. Okay, so oven or smoked then? What's your number two?
Smoke would be second for me.
Yeah, I'd go smoked too. Oven's kind of weak. Oven's kind of tasteless at times.
Mm-hmm.
We'll make an exciting.
Yeah. This is the crybaby in the background.
Crybaby. Yeah, we're going to show him the camera. Get him up there. Emma Brown says, the penny on the dollars free agency this coming off season sounds nice. I just hope we spend wiser than we did last year. I do too, Emmett. Didn't spend very wisely this last offseason. You're not going to have as much money to spend, but at least prior to the Carlos Dunlap signing, we had the fifth amount most of cap space under the cap as we sat right now moving into this offseason. And that's with the potential of Dwayne Brown retiring, which would free up another approximately $13.5 million if he were to retire. So could even go even beyond that. Space, what's up with Penny? I think Penny's either this week or next week. It sounds like maybe next week at this point. B-Russ, it would definitely be nice to have Brooks just slide right into Bobby's spot in the future and never lose a stride at linebacker. Let's hope he keeps progressing, especially in coverage. Agreed, B-Russ, and that's the plan. Eventually, he's going to be your middle linebacker of the future when it's all said and done. Eric99, all respects to Brooks, but Bobby's a future Hall of Famer. Can't replace that. Potentially not, Eric. It's going to be hard to be better than what Bobby's been. And for the folks out there that have knocked on Bobby, there's been a few in my chat, Dmack, this year that have said, oh, he's way below what he was. He's not the same player. He is the top rated linebacker by Pro Football Focus in the entire NFL this year. Bobby Wagner. I think that's saying something. At this year in his career, at this late stage of his career, fantastic the way he's playing. And again, he continues to elevate himself on that list of the all-time great middle linebackers. And in my opinion, Bobby has begun to maybe if not already, elevate himself past Singletary. He's not going to reach Ray Lewis, right, D-Mac? He'll never get to Ray Lewis point. But I think he's gotten past Singletary at this point, as far as longevity and how good he's played for as long as he have. Certainly above Kuechly retired. So if you're looking at pecking order, Bobby could be pushing himself into one of those top 5 all-time middle linebackers in the sports if he keeps stacking up these kind of seasons.
Yeah.
If we got Aaron Donald, Russ would be more happy than anyone. I'd be more happy than anyone if we got Aaron Donald. I love Aaron Donald, dude. Aaron Donald yeah. Emmett says the visor does not look badass on DK. Looks like Chancellor with a binky. Space says, don't deep fry hot dogs. They're gross. I think hot dogs are gross anyway. I don't like you always get 3 bites of a hot dog, where there's that weird chewy piece that you don't know if it's a kneecap or part of a tooth, or maybe a little bit of just gelatinous, whatever. I'm good with, I could not eat another hot dog the rest of my life and be just fine with that. Later, Jose, you have a good one, man. Chat's not. Okay. So I think we have hit the bottom of the chat here, DMAC. We got ourselves a nice little show in here today.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to wish you guys all a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for hopping on in the chat. Just a quick one in. I'll be back up on probably Monday night after the game. We'll be doing a late one on that night. Other than that, hopefully we will have that next Great Seahawks Moment video out to you guys shortly. I am hard at work at it, just trying to get to the last. I just got to get the audio tracks laid on, but everything's cut up. Most of the CGI stuff's done. Narration's out. So it's just kind of tightening down the last of the screws on it. But I think you guys will like it. I'm pretty happy with this one where it's at. It's a long one. It's going to be another 30-minute one. But other than that, appreciate you guys. Thank you for hopping in. You guys have a safe, happy Thanksgiving. Stay safe. Stay healthy. No, none of the vid. Don't get none of that vid out there. Get that vitamin C in you guys' body. Get that sleep. Eric99 says, if Eric Lurlacher makes the Hall of Fame, Bobby's a lock. Bobby's already a lock, Eric99. It's just a matter of where he ranks all time now, middle linebacker. So he's probably above Urlacher at this point too. Maybe. Urlacher's got a lot of interceptions. So he's got that statistical thing he can kind of stack in his back pocket. But we'll see. Either way, we appreciate you guys. Just, I feel like there's one more thing I'm forgetting though, DMAC in there. Just one more thing. Oh, yes. Go Hawks.